The alien princesses gasp in disbelief as a lone human dares to breach their toxic-filled ship. Toxic fumes curl from the crashed Daxamite vessel, its sleek form now a crumpled mass of metal nestled in Earth's dense forest. The ship's distress beacon pierces the air, a frantic pulse that reaches far beyond our world. Kyle Phillips, forest ranger and unexpected hero, stands before the sealed airlock. His hands grip a crowbar, muscles tensing as he prepares to pry open the jammed door. Behind him, a Daxamite rescue team led by Nova, their military officer, watches with a mix of curiosity and disdain. "Stand back, human," Nova commands, her voice tight with concern. The atmosphere inside is lethal. Kyle ignores her, wedging the crowbar into the airlock seam. He grunts, sweat beading on his forehead as he applies pressure. The metal groans, then gives way with a hiss of escaping gas. Nova's team retreats, faces contorted in fear. But Kyle pushes forward, disappearing into the toxic mist. Seconds stretch into minutes as the Daxamites hold their breath. Suddenly, Kyle emerges, an unconscious princess in his arms. He lays her gently on the ground before diving back into the ship. The Daxamites exchange shocked glances, their deeply held beliefs about human inferiority crumbling before their eyes. 2 more times Kyle enters the ship, each time returning with another princess. His movements grow sluggish, his breathing labored. As he sets down the 3rd princess, he collapses. Nova hesitates, torn between protocol and the undeniable bravery she's witnessed. Decision made, she rushes to Kyle's side, producing a Daxamite medical device. She presses it against his chest, knowing her actions might spark interstellar controversy. News of the incident spreads like wildfire through both human and Daxamite channels. Earth's governments demand recognition for Kyle's heroism, while Daxamite leadership grapples with the implications of owing a life debt to a species they've long considered lesser. In a makeshift medical facility, Kyle's eyes flutter open. He's oblivious to the political storm he's inadvertently created. Nearby, the 3 princesses, now recovered, argue with their advisors. "We must see him," the eldest insists, her voice brooking no argument. "He risked everything for us." Their request sets the stage for an unprecedented diplomatic encounter. As Kyle struggles to sit up, the door to his room opens. 3 regal figures enter, their alien features softened by expressions of gratitude and wonder. Meanwhile, Nova faces a tribunal of her superiors, forced to defend her decision to save Kyle's life. "I saw courage today," she states firmly. Courage that knows no species. As the story of Kyle's heroism spreads, it challenges long-held Daxamite beliefs. Debates rage in alien forums and councils. The balance of power between humans and Daxamites teeters on the brink of change, all because one forest ranger dared to save 3 alien princesses. As Kyle struggled to sit up, the door to his room opened, revealing 3 regal figures. The Daxamite princesses entered, their alien features softened by expressions of gratitude and wonder. But their visit was cut short by a commotion outside. "We need to go," whispered the eldest princess, her eyes darting towards the door. "Our presence here is unauthorized." As quickly as they had appeared, the princesses vanished, leaving Kyle bewildered and surrounded by a whirlwind of activity. Doctors and nurses rushed in, followed by stern-faced security personnel. Mr. Phillips, a tall man in a crisp suit, addressed him. "I'm Admiral Marcus Blackwood. We need to move you to a more secure location." Within hours, Kyle found himself in a high-security medical facility, a stark contrast to the makeshift setup he'd woken up in. Through the windows, he could see a cordon of armed guards and a sea of reporters held at bay. Dr. James Carter, a man with kind eyes and a perpetual furrow in his brow, explained the situation. "Kyle, your actions have sparked an interstellar incident. The UN is in emergency session as we speak. Kyle's mind reeled. He was just a forest ranger, not a diplomat or a hero. Yet here he was, at the center of a political firestorm. In the following days, Kyle's recovery progressed at an astonishing rate. Dr. Carter monitored him closely, his excitement growing with each test result. "It's remarkable," Dr. Carter muttered, reviewing a holographic display of Kyle's cellular structure. "The Daxamite treatment seems to have awakened dormant genes in your DNA. Your strength, your healing, they're off the charts." Kyle flexed his hand, watching as a cut from his earlier test sealed itself in seconds. "What does this mean, Doc?" Before Dr. Carter could answer, the door burst open. Mike Thompson, Kyle's childhood friend and fellow ranger, strode in, his face a mix of concern and awe. "Kyle, buddy, you won't believe what's happening out there," Mike said, gesturing wildly. "You're all over the news. World leaders are fighting over who gets to talk to you first." Kyle groaned, sinking back into his pillows. "I just want to go back to my cabin in the woods, Mike. I'm not cut out for this." Mike squeezed his friend's shoulder. "I know, man. That's why I'm here. I'll run interference, keep the vultures at bay." As Kyle grappled with his new reality, events beyond his control continued to unfold. In the United Nations General Assembly, Admiral Blackwood stood before a mixed audience of human and Daxamite representatives. "Esteemed colleagues," Blackwood's voice rang out, "I present to you irrefutable evidence of Ranger Phillips' heroism." A holographic display flickered to life, showing satellite footage of Kyle's daring rescue. Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber as they watched Kyle emerge from the toxic ship, princesses in his arms. Lord Zax, the Daxamite ambassador, rose to speak. His voice was cold, his posture rigid. "While we acknowledge the humans' actions, we must not overstate their significance. One anomalous act does not negate millennia of evolutionary superiority." Admiral Blackwood's eyes hardened, but he held his tongue. The debate raged on, with neither side willing to concede ground. Meanwhile, on the Daxamite homeworld, the High Council convened in an emergency session. High Counselor Druzad paced before his peers, his face contorted with rage. "This human's interference threatens everything we stand for," Druzad snarled. "We must act swiftly to contain the situation." But not all shared his view. Counselor Larim, leader of a growing progressive movement, stood in opposition. "Perhaps it's time we reassessed our stance on humanity. This ranger's actions speak to potential we've long ignored." As the council argued, Nova stood before a military tribunal, her posture proud despite the weight of her actions. "I stand by my decision," Nova declared, her voice unwavering. "I saw not a lesser being, but a soul worthy of preservation. If that's a crime, then I gladly accept the consequences." The tribunal members exchanged glances, their decision hanging in the balance. Back on Earth, Kyle received unexpected visitors. The 3 Daxamite princesses materialized in his room, their forms shimmering as cloaking technology deactivated. "We had to see you again," said Lyra, the eldest. "To thank you properly." Kyle sat up, wincing slightly. "I just did what anyone would do." Vela, the middle princess, shook her head. "No, Kyle Phillips, you did what no one else could do, or would do." As they talked, Kyle learned of their world, their customs, and a prophecy that made his head spin. "A foreign savior," Mira, the youngest, explained, her eyes shining. "One who would bridge the gap between our peoples." Kyle laughed nervously. "That can't be me. I'm just a guy who likes trees and quiet." The princesses exchanged meaningful glances, but said no more on the subject. As they prepared to leave, Lyra turned to Kyle. "The High Council has extended an invitation for you to visit our world. It's unprecedented." Kyle's mouth went dry. "Me? On your planet?" Mira nodded enthusiastically. You must come. It could change everything. As the princesses disappeared, leaving Kyle alone with this monumental decision, none of them noticed a shadow that detached itself from the corner of the room. The Zen Theory operative slipped away, its mission to observe and report accomplished. In a hidden base, the Zen Theory commander received the report. Excellent, it hissed. The pieces are in motion. Now, we shall ensure they fall where we desire. Kyle stared out the window, the weight of two worlds resting on his shoulders. Accept the invitation, and potentially reshape the future of human-Daxamite relations, or decline, and retreat to the safety of his former life. As he pondered his choice, forces beyond his comprehension maneuvered in the shadows, their machinations promising to complicate an already volatile situation. As Kyle pondered his momentous decision, the world around him erupted into chaos. The peaceful night was shattered by a series of explosions that rocked the city. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing moment. Admiral Blackwood burst into the room, his face grim. We're under attack. Daxamite diplomatic outposts across the globe are being hit. Kyle's eyes widened in shock. Who's behind this? A group of human extremists, Blackwood replied, his expression resolute. Led by a former military officer named Colonel Victor Hawthorne. They're using fear and mistrust to justify their actions. As they spoke, Dr. Carter rushed in, clutching a tablet. Kyle, we need to move you now. Your enhanced abilities make you a potential target. Kyle stood, surprised by the ease with which he moved. The lingering pain from his injuries had vanished, replaced by a surge of strength. He followed Dr. Carter and Admiral Blackwood through a maze of corridors, their footsteps echoing off the sterile walls. They emerged into a secure command center, screens lining the walls displaying scenes of destruction from around the world. Kyle watched in horror as Daxamite diplomats were evacuated from burning buildings, their alien features twisted in pain and confusion. Admiral Blackwood turned to Kyle, his expression grave. The UN Security Council is convening as we speak. This attack could undo everything we've worked for. As Kyle absorbed the gravity of the situation, Dr. Carter pulled him aside. There's something else you need to see, he said, activating a holographic display. The image showed a cellular structure unlike anything Kyle had ever seen. This is your DNA, Dr. Carter explained, his voice filled with terrifying excitement. The Daxamite treatment didn't just heal you. It's awakened dormant genes, unlocking potential we never knew existed in humans. Kyle flexed his hand, watching as small cuts from earlier tests sealed themselves in seconds. What does this mean? Before Dr. Carter could answer, the room's main screen flickered to life. The three Daxamite princesses appeared, their faces etched with concern. Kyle Phillips, Lyra spoke, her voice tight. We've just learned of the attacks. Our conservatives are demanding our immediate return home. Vela interjected, her eyes flashing with perseverance. But we believe staying here is crucial. We can help ease tensions, foster understanding. Mira nodded in agreement. Your world needs us now more than ever. As Kyle processed their words, another screen lit up. It showed the Daxamite High Council chamber, where High Counselor Druzad stood at the podium, his face contorted with rage. These attacks are proof of humanity's barbaric nature, Druzad thundered. We must take immediate military action to protect our interests. The feed cut to cheering crowds on the Daxamite homeworld, Druzad's words igniting a fervor of anti-human sentiment. Amidst the chaos, a message flashed across one of the smaller screens. Admiral Blackwood read it aloud, his eyebrows raised in surprise. Nova, the Daxamite officer who saved your life, Kyle. She's been exonerated by her military tribunal and reinstated. They're assigning her as a liaison between our forces. Kyle felt a glimmer of hope at this news. At least some Daxamites, still believed in cooperation. As the situation escalated, Kyle made his decision. He stepped forward, drawing all eyes in the room. "I'll go," he announced firmly. "I'll accept the High Council's invitation." A hush fell over the command center. Admiral Blackwood nodded slowly. "It's a risk, but it might be our best chance at peace." Dr. Carter placed a hand on Kyle's shoulder. "I'm coming with you. We need to continue studying your changes." "Count me in too," came a voice from the doorway. Mike Thompson strode in, a determined look on his face. "Someone's got to keep you out of trouble, buddy." As preparations for the unprecedented journey began, none of them noticed a shadow that slipped out of the room. In a hidden base far from prying eyes, a Zen Theory operative delivered its report. "Excellent," the Zen Theory commander hissed. "The humans and Daxamites dance to our tune. Soon, they will be too weak to resist us." Back in the command center, Kyle stood before a window, watching as the city below buzzed with frantic activity. The weight of two worlds rested on his shoulders, but for the first time since this all began, he felt ready to bear it. Nova's face appeared on a nearby screen. "I'll be your Daxamite liaison for this mission," she said, her eyes meeting Kyle's. "Together, we might just prevent a war." As Kyle nodded in agreement, alarms blared throughout the facility. Admiral Blackwood rushed to a console, his face paling as he read the incoming reports. "We've got another problem," he announced grimly. "The extremists didn't just attack Daxamite outposts. They stole advanced alien technology. We need to move fast before they can use it." Kyle clenched his fists, feeling the power surging through his enhanced body. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. Ticking. Kyle took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. As the team rushed to finalize their preparations, the world outside descended into chaos. News of the extremist attack spread like wildfire, igniting a powder keg of anti-alien sentiment that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. Admiral Blackwood's comm device buzzed incessantly with updates from around the globe. He grimaced as he read the latest report. Protests are breaking out in major cities worldwide. They're demanding the expulsion of all Daxamite diplomats. Kyle peered at one of the nearby screens, watching as angry crowds gathered outside Daxamite embassies, their faces contorted with fear and rage. Signs bearing slogans like "Earth for Humans" and "No Alien Overlords" bobbed above the sea of protesters. "This is exactly what Colonel Hawthorne wanted," Mike growled, his fists clenched at his sides. "He's playing on people's fears, turning them against each other." Nova's face appeared on the main screen, her expression grim. "The situation is deteriorating rapidly. The Daxamite High Council is demanding the immediate return of Princesses Lyra, Vela, and Mira." Kyle felt a pang of concern for the three alien royals who had shown him such kindness. "Where are they now?" he asked. "They're in a secure location," Admiral Blackwood replied, his voice tight with stress. "But their presence here has become a major point of contention. Some human governments want to use them as bargaining chips in negotiations with the Daxamite High Council." Before Kyle could respond, the room speakers crackled to life with an urgent announcement. "Attention all personnel. Secretary General Richard Evans is addressing the emergency session of the United Nations. Please stand by for a live feed." The main screen switched to a view of the UN General Assembly. Secretary General Evans stood at the podium, his face etched with concern but his voice steady and resolute. "In light of recent events, I am proposing the formation of a new interspecies task force to address the growing tensions between humans and Daxamites, and to investigate the attacks on Daxamite outposts," Evans announced. "I am appointing Admiral Marcus Blackwood to lead this task force, with Nova serving as the Daxamite representative." Blackwood straightened, his eyes narrowing as he processed this new development. "Well," he muttered, "looks like our mission just got a lot more complicated." As the team absorbed this news, Dr. Carter burst into the room, his eyes wide with excitement. "Kyle, I've made a breakthrough," he exclaimed, waving a data pad. "Your enhanced abilities. They're not just a side effect of the Daxamite treatment. It's something more." Kyle leaned forward, intrigued. "What do you mean, Doc?" Dr. Carter activated a holographic display, showing a complex DNA structure. "You have a rare genetic mutation present in a small percentage of humans. When activated by Daxamite technology, it grants superhuman abilities. This could be the key to unlocking humanity's full potential." Admiral Blackwood's eyebrows shot up. "Are you saying we could create more people like Kyle?" "Potentially, yes," Dr. Carter nodded. "This discovery could bridge the gap between human and Daxamite capabilities. We need to share this information with the Daxamites. It could foster greater understanding and cooperation between our species." Blackwood made a quick decision. "Dr. Carter, pack your bags. You're coming with us to the Daxamite homeworld. This information is too valuable to leave behind." As the team scrambled to adjust their plans, Kyle found himself pulled aside by Mike. "Come on, buddy," Mike said, leading him to a nearby training room. "We need to work on controlling those new abilities of yours." Over the next few days, Kyle pushed his body to its limits, learning to harness his newfound strength and speed. Mike was there every step of the way, offering encouragement and the occasional sarcastic quip. On the eve of their departure, a new face joined their group. John Reeves, a seasoned diplomat with decades of experience in interspecies negotiations, was introduced as a last-minute addition to the mission. Mr. Reeves will be crucial in navigating the political landscape of the Daxamite homeworld, Blackwood explained. As the team made their final preparations, none of them noticed a shadow that slipped out of the room, its mission complete. In a hidden base far from prying eyes, Zen Theory operatives set their most ambitious plan into motion. The day of the launch arrived, bringing with it a storm of controversy. As Kyle and his team approached the Daxamite shuttle that would take them to the alien homeworld, they could hear the roar of protesters outside the facility. "Traitors!" the crowd chanted, their voices filled with venom. "Earth for humans!" Nova's voice crackled over the comm system. "We need to move now. Hawthorne's followers are attempting to breach the perimeter." Kyle looked back at the facility one last time as they boarded the shuttle. He could see flashes of light and plumes of smoke rising in the distance. His heart raced as Nova initiated the emergency launch protocol. The shuttle's engines roared to life, pressing Kyle back into his seat. Through the viewport, he watched as Earth grew smaller, receding into the distance. As they broke through the atmosphere and into the inky blackness of space, Kyle felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. Their journey had only just begun, and already the stakes were higher than he could have imagined. As the shuttle accelerated towards its destination, Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that they were hurtling not just towards the Daxamite homeworld, but towards a future that would reshape both their species forever. Suddenly, the shuttle's communication system crackled to life. A fragmented transmission from Earth broke through the static, its urgency palpable even through the distortion. New intelligence. Possible threat. Mission compromised. Before they could decipher more, the transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Kyle and his team to exchange worried glances. Whatever dangers awaited them on the Daxamite homeworld, it seemed that new unknown perils had been added to their already daunting mission. The fragmented transmission left an uneasy silence in the shuttle. Kyle exchanged worried glances with his teammates, the weight of their mission growing heavier by the second. "We need to decipher that message," Dr. Carter said, his fingers flying over the communication console. "It could be crucial to our mission." Before anyone could respond, Nova's voice cut through the tension. "Alert! Anomalous energy signature detected." All eyes turned to the view screen as a massive asteroid field came into view. Amidst the tumbling rocks, a pulsating energy reading caught their attention. Nova's eyes widened. That energy pattern. It's similar to ancient Daxamite technology, but it's been lost for centuries. Admiral Blackwood leaned forward, his brow furrowed. This could be valuable intel for our negotiations. Nova, can we safely investigate? The Daxamite officer nodded, her hands already adjusting their course. I can navigate us through the field, but it'll be tight. As the shuttle weaved between the asteroids, the source of the energy signature came into view. A massive structure, clearly artificial, loomed before them. Its architecture was unlike anything Kyle had ever seen, sleek lines and curves that seemed to defy physics. That's no Daxamite station, Nova breathed, her voice filled with awe. Dr. Carter's console beeped urgently. I'm picking up life signs inside. Faint, but definitely there. Kyle felt a surge of adrenaline course through his enhanced body. We need to investigate. This could change everything. Admiral Blackwood nodded grimly. Agreed. Kyle, you'll lead the boarding party with Nova and Mike. Dr. Carter and Mr. Reeves will stay here to coordinate and analyze data. As Kyle donned his EVA suit, he caught Mike's eye. His friend gave him a reassuring nod. Just like our training buddy. You've got this. The airlock hissed open and Kyle led the way, his enhanced senses on high alert. As they entered the station, the team was struck by the advanced technology surrounding them. Holographic displays flickered to life, responding to their presence. This tech is way beyond anything we have, Mike whispered, his voice filled with awe. Nova ran her hand along a nearby console. Beyond Daxamite capabilities, too. Whoever built this. Her words trailed off as they entered a vast chamber filled with rows of stasis pods. Inside, they could see the shadowy outlines of various beings, some human, some Daxamite, and others completely alien. They're alive, Dr. Carter's voice crackled through their comms. In some sort of suspended animation. Kyle approached one of the pods, wiping away a layer of frost. The face of a human woman stared back at him, her eyes closed in peaceful slumber. Suddenly, Kyle's elbow brushed against a nearby console. A brilliant light filled the room as a holographic figure materialized before them. Greetings, explorers, the figure spoke, its voice echoing through the chamber. You had discovered the last refuge of the Guardians. Kyle stepped forward, his heart racing. Who are the Guardians? The hologram's expression turned solemn. We were an intergalactic peacekeeping force, dedicated to preserving life and fostering cooperation between species. We foresaw a great conflict that threatened multiple civilizations. This station was created as a safeguard. As the hologram continued its explanation, a low hum filled the air. The stasis pods began to glow, their systems activating one by one. Kyle, Nova called out, her voice urgent. Something's happening. The pods hissed open, releasing clouds of vapor. Figures began to stir, slowly awakening from their long slumber. Among the first to emerge was a tall, imposing Daxamite male. His eyes snapped open, taking in his surroundings with military precision. Nova gasped, her face pale with shock. It can't be. Admiral Farrell? The Daxamite turned, his gaze locking onto Nova. Identify yourself, soldier, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of authority. As Nova stammered out an explanation, Kyle's calm crackled to life. Admiral Blackwood's voice came through, tight with urgency. Kyle, we had just intercepted a transmission. A Daxamite battlecruiser is on its way to your location. High Counselor Drew Zod sent them. Kyle's mind raced, processing the rapidly evolving situation. The awakening Guardians, the legendary Admiral Zarel, and now an approaching Daxamite warship. Their mission had just become infinitely more complex. As more stasis pods opened and their inhabitants stirred, Kyle realized they were standing at a crossroads of galactic history. The choices they made in the next few moments could determine the fate of multiple civilizations. Admiral Zarl stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he surveyed the chamber. "I need a full status report. Now." Kyle took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenge ahead. He had to find a way to navigate this volatile situation, balancing the interests of the Guardians, the newly awakened Daxamites, and their original mission. The hum of the station system seemed to grow louder, matching the intensity of the moment. As Kyle opened his mouth to speak, he knew that his next words could either pave the way for intergalactic peace or ignite a conflict that would span the stars. Galaxies. Kyle took a deep breath, his enhanced senses acutely aware of the tension in the room. "Admiral Zarel," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "I'm Kyle Phillips, part of a joint human-Daxamite mission. We're here to—" A sudden alarm blared through the station, cutting off Kyle's introduction. Nova's hands flew across a nearby console, her eyes widening as she processed the information. "Daxamite battle cruiser approaching fast," she reported, her voice tight. "They'll be within weapons range in minutes." Kyle's mind raced, weighing their options. The newly awakened Guardians were still disoriented, and they had barely begun to understand the station's capabilities. A confrontation now could be disastrous. "We need to stay put," Kyle decided, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to think and act faster than ever before. "Nova, establish communication with that cruiser. Dr. Carter might focus on helping these people." He gestured to the awakening inhabitants of the station. Admiral Zarel's eyes narrowed, assessing Kyle with the intensity of a seasoned military leader. "A bold move, young one, but perhaps the right one. This station has formidable defenses, if we can reactivate them." Kyle nodded, grateful for the support. "Can you help us with that, Admiral?" "Indeed," Zarel replied, moving swiftly to a nearby control panel. His fingers danced across the alien interface with practiced ease, bringing long-dormant systems back to life. Nova's voice cut through the hum of reactivating machinery. "I've made contact with the Daxamite ship. Their commander, Captain Corvex, is demanding our immediate surrender." Kyle stepped forward, his enhanced hearing picking up the faint crackle of the communication channel. "This is Kyle Phillips. We're not here to fight, Captain. We've discovered something of great importance to both our peoples. I propose a peaceful inspection of this station instead." There was a moment of tense silence before Captain Corvex's voice came through, filled with suspicion. "And why should we trust you, human?" Admiral Zarel moved to Kyle's side, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of authority. "Because I, Admiral Zarel of the Daxamite fleet, vouch for him." The silence that followed was deafening. Kyle could almost feel the shock radiating from the Daxamite ship. "Admiral Zarel." Corvex's voice was filled with disbelief. "But how?" "It's a long story, Captain," Zarel replied. "One best told in person. Will you agree to a ceasefire and board the station peacefully?" After a moment of hesitation, Corvex agreed. Kyle let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. As they waited for the Daxamite delegation to arrive, John Reeves approached Kyle. "Well handled," the diplomat said quietly. "But now comes the real challenge. We need to navigate the situation carefully." Kyle nodded, grateful for Reeves' experience. "Any advice?" "Let me take the lead in the initial discussions," Reeves suggested. "We need to establish a framework for cooperation before we delve into the details of what we've found here." The arrival of Captain Corvex and his security team brought a new wave of tension to the station. Kyle could see the Daxamite soldiers' hands hovering near their weapons, their eyes darting suspiciously around the ancient chamber. As Reeves began the delicate dance of diplomacy, Dr. Carter's excited voice suddenly cut through the tense atmosphere. "Kyle, you need to see this." All eyes turned to the scientist, who was staring at a holographic display with a mixture of awe and horror. "I've been analyzing the station's database," he explained, his words tumbling out in a rush. "There's a massive asteroid on a collision course with both Earth and the Daxamite homeworld." The revelation sent shockwaves through the room. Kyle saw Captain Korvex's eyes widen, his hostility momentarily forgotten in the face of this new threat. Seizing the moment, Kyle stepped forward. "This is why we need to work together," he said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "This station, this Guardian technology, it might be our only hope of stopping that asteroid." He moved to a nearby console, his enhanced abilities allowing him to interface with the alien technology in ways he didn't fully understand. A massive holographic display sprang to life, showing the asteroid's trajectory in terrifying detail. "The station's long-range sensors confirmed Dr. Carter's findings," Kyle reported, his eyes scanning the data. "But they've also detected something else. Something that might help us stop it." As the implications of this new information sank in, Kyle could see the shift in Captain Korvex's demeanor. The Daxamite commander squared his shoulders, his expression resolute. "I must contact the High Council," Korvex announced. "They need to be informed of these developments immediately." Kyle nodded, relief washing over him. The immediate threat of conflict had passed, replaced by the potential for cooperation in the face of a greater danger. As Korvex retreated to make his report, Kyle turned to face his team and the awakened Guardians. "All right," he said, his voice filled with tenacity. "Let's figure out how to save our worlds." The chamber buzzed with activity as humans, Daxamites, and Guardians began to work together, poring over ancient technology and astronomical data. Kyle moved from group to group, his enhanced senses allowing him to process information at an incredible rate. Suddenly, a new alarm blared through the station. Nova rushed to a console, her fingers flying over the controls. "We're receiving a transmission," she announced, her voice tight with tension. It's not like anything I've ever seen before." As they worked to decipher the mysterious message, Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something much bigger than they had ever imagined. The asteroid, the Guardians, this unknown transmission. All the pieces were there, but the full picture remained frustratingly out of reach. With a final burst of static, the message cleared. A distorted voice filled the chamber, its words sending a chill down Kyle's spine. "Warning. Zen theory forces approaching. Guardian facility under attack. Request immediate assistance." Kyle's eyes met Nova's, then Admiral Zarel's. The implications were staggering. The Zen theory, the shadowy force they had encountered on Earth, were part of something far larger, a conflict that spanned galaxies. As the weight of this new information settled over the room, Kyle realized that their mission had just become infinitely more complex. They now faced not one, but two existential threats: the asteroid hurtling towards their worlds, and the Zen theory menace that threatened the very fabric of galactic peace. With a deep breath, Kyle reached for the communication panel. It was time to contact Admiral Blackwood. As he prepared to brief his superior on the staggering developments of the past few hours, Kyle knew that the decisions they made in the coming days would shape the future of not just Earth and Daxam, but potentially the entire galaxy. The station hummed around them, ancient systems coming to life as if sensing the magnitude of the moment. Whatever came next, Kyle knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The station hummed around them, ancient systems coming to life as if sensing the magnitude of the moment. Whatever came next, Kyle knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same. With steady hands, Kyle activated the communication array, establishing a secure channel to Earth. Admiral Marcus Blackwood's stern face materialized on the holographic display, his eyes narrowing as he took in Kyle's expression. "Report, Phillips," Blackwood commanded, his voice crisp even across the vast distance of space. Kyle drew a deep breath, organizing his thoughts. "Sir, the situation has..." evolved significantly. We've discovered a Guardian station and awakened its inhabitants, including Admiral Zarel of the Daxamite fleet. Blackwood's eyebrows shot up, but he remained silent as Kyle continued his briefing. The young officer detailed the dual threats they now faced: the incoming asteroid and the Zen forces, his enhanced mind allowing him to convey the complex information with remarkable clarity. As Kyle finished, Blackwood's face grew grave. "Understood, Phillips. I'll mobilize Earth's resources immediately and brief the UN Security Council. This is bigger than any one nation now." While Kyle coordinated with Earth, Dr. Carter and Mike immersed themselves in the Guardian technology. Their excited voices echoed through the chamber as they made breakthrough after breakthrough. "Kyle," Dr. Carter called out, his eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and urgency. "We've cracked the asteroid deflection system, but there's a catch. It needs an enormous power source, more than anything we've got on hand." Mike nodded, pulling up a holographic star chart. "But we might have a solution. There's a pulsar nearby that could provide the juice we need. The only problem is harvesting energy from a pulsar is incredibly dangerous," Kyle finished, his enhanced mind quickly grasping the implications. As they debated the feasibility of the pulsar plan, Captain Korvex approached, his face set in determined lines. "I've received new orders from the High Council," he announced. "In light of the asteroid threat, we're to form a temporary alliance with your people. Reinforcements are on their way, including a research vessel with energy harvesting capabilities." Kyle nodded, relief washing over him. The combined resources of Earth and Daxam would significantly improve their chances of success. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Nova's fingers flew across the control panel, her face paling. "Multiple Zen vessels incoming. They found us." Kyle's mind raced, assessing their options. In that moment, he felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. "Nova, coordinate with Admiral Zarel on defensive strategies. I'll man the weapon systems." As Kyle interfaced with the Guardian technology, he marveled at how naturally it responded to his enhanced abilities. The station's defense grid came to life under his touch, targeting the incoming Zen ships with unerring precision. The space around the station erupted in a dazzling display of energy weapons and explosions. Kyle's enhanced reflexes allowed him to anticipate and counter the Zen attack patterns, while Nova and Admiral Zarel directed the combined human Daxamite fleet with practiced efficiency. In the midst of the chaos, John Reeves' voice cut through the din. "Kyle, I found something in the Guardian database. Information on Zen weaknesses." As Reeves relayed the crucial intelligence, Kyle's mind whirred, formulating new strategies. He recalibrated the station's weapons, targeting specific vulnerabilities in the Zen ship's design. The tide of battle turned. One by one, the Zen vessels fell to the combined might of the Guardian station and the Allied fleet. As the last enemy ship retreated, a cheer went up from the assembled crew. In the aftermath of the battle, Admiral Zarel gathered the team. His face was grim as he revealed the truth about the Zen origins. "They were once Guardians themselves," he explained, his voice heavy with regret. "They broke away centuries ago, choosing conquest over protection." The revelation cast a somber mood over the group, but Kyle knew they couldn't afford to dwell on it. "We need to refocus on the asteroid," he said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "I have an idea." Kyle outlined his plan to use the Guardian station itself as a mobile asteroid deflection platform. It was audacious, even dangerous, but it offered their best chance of success. As the team threw themselves into preparations, Kyle found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. He worked closely with Nova and Captain Korvex, integrating Daxamite energy harvesting technology with the Guardian systems. His enhanced abilities allowed him to bridge the gap between the different technologies, finding innovative solutions to seemingly insurmountable problems. Time seemed to blur as they worked tirelessly to ready the station for its critical mission. Reports from Earth and Daxam grew increasingly dire, with meteor showers and gravitational disturbances causing widespread panic. Finally, after what felt like days of non-stop work, Kyle stood at the helm of the Guardian station. Before him stretched the vast expanse of space, with the pulsar's deadly glow visible in the distance. Behind him, the combined human Daxamite fleet fell into formation, ready to embark on their desperate mission. As Kyle prepared to give the order to move out, the station's long-range sensors lit up with a new threat. A massive wave of Zen ships, larger and more heavily armed than before, was rapidly approaching their position. Kyle's teeth gritted in persistence as he surveyed the challenges that lay ahead. The deadly pulsar, the incoming asteroid, and now a Zen armada. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of Earth and Daxam, but potentially the balance of power in the galaxy itself. With a deep breath, Kyle opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, prepare for departure. Our mission begins now. Now. Kyle's voice rang out, steady and resolute. The massive Guardian station hummed to life, its ancient systems responding to his enhanced abilities as if they were extensions of his own body. As the station began to move, the combined human Daxamite fleet fell into formation around it. Through the main viewport, Kyle could see the deadly glow of the pulsar growing larger, its immense power both their salvation and a potential doom. Approaching optimal harvesting range, Dr. Carter called out, his eyes fixed on the readouts before him. Daxamite vessel, prepare to deploy energy harvesting technology. Captain Corvex's voice crackled over the comms. Acknowledged. Deployment in 3, 2, 1. A sleek, silver craft detached from the Daxamite flagship, gliding towards a Guardian station with precise movements. As it connected, Kyle felt a surge of power course through the station systems. Integration successful, Mike Thompson reported, his fingers flying over the controls. Beginning energy transfer to the asteroid deflection mechanism. Kyle nodded, his enhanced mind processing multiple streams of data simultaneously. He could feel the raw power of the pulsar flowing through the station, barely held back by their combined technologies. Suddenly, alarms blared. Nova's voice cut through the chaos. Zen fleet detected. Multiple vessels on an intercept course. Kyle's face hardened as he assessed the situation. Nova, coordinate with Captain Corvex. Establish a defensive perimeter around the station. Admiral Zarel, I need your tactical expertise. The elderly Guardian stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with centuries of military experience. We should concentrate our forces here and here, he said, indicating points on the tactical display. It will force them to divide their attack. As Kyle relayed the orders, he felt the station shudder. Warning lights flashed across the control panels. Power fluctuations. Dr. Carter shouted. The pulsar's energy is too volatile. We can't contain it. Without hesitation, Kyle moved to the main power distribution node. I'll regulate it manually, he said, placing his hands on the pulsing energy conduits. The raw power of the pulsar seared through him, and he gritted his teeth against the pain. Outside, space erupted into chaos as the Zen fleet engaged the human Daxamite defenses. Energy weapons lanced across the void, and explosions bloomed in silent fury. Kyle, John Reeves' voice cut through the din. I've analyzed their attack patterns. There's a weakness in their left flank. Admiral Zarel leaned in, studying the tactical display. Captain Corvex, take your fastest ships and exploit that weakness. Hit them hard and fast. As the battle raged, Kyle struggled to maintain control over the station's power systems. Every cell in his body screamed in protest, but he held on, knowing that failure meant destruction for two worlds. Kyle, Dr. Carter's voice was tight with excitement and fear. We found something in the Guardian database. A superweapon capable of repelling the Zen theory permanently. But the energy requirements are more than we can safely harvest, Kyle finished, his mind racing. He looked at the surging energy coursing through his hands, then at the tactical display showing the Zen theory ships breaching their outer defenses. In that moment, Kyle made a decision that could save or doom them all. "We're going to channel the excess energy directly into the weapon systems," he announced. "It's risky, but it's our best shot at stopping both the Zen theory and the asteroid." Admiral Blackwood's face appeared on a nearby screen. "You understand the risks, Phillips?" Kyle nodded grimly. "I do, sir, but it's our only chance." "Then make it happen," Blackwood ordered. As Dr. Carter and Mike Thompson rushed to modify the station systems, Kyle prepared himself for the immense strain to come. He could feel the raw power of the pulsar building within the station, threatening to tear it apart. "Now!" Kyle shouted, and unleashed the full fury of the pulsar's energy. The Guardian station blazed with blinding light, energy arcing across its surface. Kyle felt as if he were being torn apart at the molecular level, but he held on, channeling the power where it needed to go. Nova cried out in pain, and Kyle saw her using her Daxamite strength to hold together a critical power conduit. "Nova!" he shouted, but she shook her head, her face set in commitment. The weapon systems came online, and a massive wave of energy erupted from the station. It washed over the Zen theory fleet, their ships disintegrating under its awesome power. With the last of his strength, Kyle redirected the remaining energy to the asteroid deflection system. A focused beam shot out towards a distant threat, altering its course away from Earth and Daxam. As the immediate danger passed, Kyle became aware of the destruction around him. The Guardian station, pushed beyond its limits, was breaking apart. "Evacuate," he ordered, supporting the injured Nova as they made their way to the docking bay where Captain Corvex's ship waited. As the last of the crew and awakened Guardians boarded, Kyle looked back at the station that had been their salvation and nearly their doom. It shuddered one final time before imploding in a brilliant flash of light. From the viewport of the Daxamite ship, Kyle watched the remnants of the Guardian station scatter across space. The asteroid's path had been altered. The Zen theory fleet lay in ruins, but the cost had been enormous. As they turned back towards Earth, Kyle knew that their actions had irrevocably changed the balance of power in the galaxy. What awaited them at home, and how would they face the challenges to come? With Nova injured beside him and his team exhausted but alive, Kyle set his sights on the journey ahead, knowing that their greatest trials might still lie before them. As the Daxamite ship pulled away from the imploding Guardian station, Kyle felt the adrenaline drain from his body, leaving him exhausted and aching. He glanced at Nova, slumped against him, her face contorted in pain. "Dr. Carter," Kyle called out, his voice hoarse. "Nova needs immediate medical attention." The doctor rushed over, his eyes widening as he took in Nova's condition. "Get her to the medical bay now." Kyle scooped Nova into his arms, ignoring the protest of his own battered muscles, and followed Dr. Carter through the narrow corridors of the Daxamite vessel. The ship's alien design, all smooth curves and pulsing bioluminescent surfaces, felt both familiar and strange to Kyle's enhanced senses. In the medical bay, Kyle gently laid Nova on a translucent examination table. Dr. Carter immediately began scanning her with unfamiliar Daxamite medical equipment, his brow furrowed in concentration. "The energy surged at a number on her internal organs," Dr. Carter muttered, more to himself than to Kyle. "Her Daxamite physiology is reacting differently to the trauma than a human's would. I'll need to improvise." As the doctor worked, Kyle reluctantly left Nova's side. He had a responsibility to the entire fleet, to Earth, and to Daxam. Making his way to the ship's command center, he found Captain Corvex coordinating with the other vessels. "Captain," Kyle said, his voice carrying the weight of command, "I need to establish communication with Earth. We have to brief them on the situation." Corvex nodded, his alien features set in a grim expression. Of course, Commander Phillips. We've managed to establish a quantum link despite the electromagnetic interference from the station's destruction. Within moments, Admiral Blackwood's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression a mix of relief and concern. Kyle, thank God. What's the situation? Kyle straightened, pushing aside his exhaustion. Admiral, the immediate threats have been neutralized. The asteroid has been deflected, and the Zen fleet destroyed. However, the Guardian station was lost in the process. He proceeded to give a detailed account of the battle, the station's destruction, and their current status. As he spoke, Kyle could see Blackwood's expression growing more serious. Understood, Kyle, the Admiral said when Kyle finished. I'm implementing a global defense protocol immediately. We can't rule out the possibility of Zen retaliation. I'm also sending a science team to rendezvous with you. We need to salvage whatever Guardian tech we can. Kyle nodded, feeling a surge of pride at Earth's rapid response. Agreed. Sir, we'll prepare for their arrival. As the communication ended, John Reeves approached Kyle, his eyes alight with excitement despite the dark circles beneath them. Kyle, you need to see this. Admiral Zarel and I have been analyzing the data we retrieved from the Guardian station. We've uncovered crucial information about Zen fleet movements and potential hideouts across the galaxy. Kyle followed John to a holographic display where Admiral Zarel stood, his ancient eyes scanning star charts and data streams. The Guardian's presence seemed to lend gravity to the moment, a living link to an unimaginably vast history. As they pored over the intelligence, the ship suddenly lurched, throwing them off balance. Mike Thompson's voice came over the intercom, tight with tension. Commander, we've hit some kind of electromagnetic disturbance. Navigation systems are offline. Kyle rushed to the bridge, where he found Mike and Captain Corvex struggling with unresponsive controls. The view screen showed a swirling mass of energy, likely an aftereffect of the Guardian station's destruction. Mike turned to Kyle, his ranger's instincts kicking in. Commander, I have an idea. It's unconventional, but it might work. We could use celestial navigation to guide us through this mess. Kyle raised an eyebrow but nodded. Do it, Mike. Whatever it takes to get us home. As Mike began calculating their position, using distant stars and pulsars, Kyle felt a sudden, searing pain course through his body. He stumbled, catching himself on a nearby console. Dr. Carter, who had just entered the bridge, rushed to Kyle's side. Kyle, what's wrong? Kyle gritted his teeth against the pain. I don't know. It feels like my entire body is on fire. The doctor quickly scanned Kyle with a handheld device, his eyes widening at the results. Incredible. The energy exposure during the battle. It's triggered further changes in your physiology. You may be evolving into a new form of human Daxamite hybrid. Before Kyle could process this information, alarms blared throughout the ship. Captain Corvex's voice cut through the chaos. Commander Phillips, we're receiving a distress signal from a nearby space station. It's under attack by Zen ships. Kyle straightened, pushing aside the pain and the implications of his changing body. He looked at the tactical display, seeing the station's position relative to their fleet and Earth. Every moment they delayed increased the risk to their home planet, but he couldn't bring himself to abandon those in need. Change course, Kyle ordered, his voice firm. We're going to rescue that station. As the fleet began its new heading, Kyle felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders once more. The battle might be over, but the war was far from won. With Earth, Daxam, and countless lives hanging in the balance, Kyle knew that the true test of their newfound alliance was just beginning. The fleet changed course, heading towards a distressed space station with urgency. As they approached, Kyle felt a renewed sense of purpose. The pain from his evolving physiology subsided, replaced by a surge of energy he couldn't quite explain. He turned to Captain Corvex. Status report on the station? The Daxamite captain's fingers danced over the holographic controls. It appears to be a joint human Daxamite research facility. Life signs detected, but they're faint. Zen Theory ships are attempting to breach the outer defenses. Kyle nodded, his mind racing. Prepare for battle. We'll engage the Zen Theory while a team boards the station to evacuate survivors and secure any critical research. As the fleet engaged the Zen Theory ships, Kyle led a small team, including Mike Thompson and Dr. Carter, to the station. They docked amidst the chaos of battle, alarms blaring as they entered the airlock. Inside, the station was a maze of flickering lights and smoke-filled corridors. Kyle's enhanced senses picked up the faint sounds of movement ahead. "This way," he gestured, leading the team deeper into the facility. They found a group of scientists barricaded in a laboratory, a mix of humans and Daxamites working side by side. Dr. Carter immediately began assessing injuries, while Mike secured the perimeter. "What's the nature of your research here?" Kyle asked, helping an injured Daxamite scientist to his feet. The scientist, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement, replied, "We've been developing a revolutionary propulsion system. It combines human ingenuity with Daxamite energy manipulation techniques. If successful, it could dramatically reduce interstellar travel times." Kyle's mind raced with the implications. "Is that why the Zen Theory attacked?" The scientist nodded grimly. "We believe so. They must have learned of our work and sought to prevent its completion." As they began evacuating the scientists, Kyle felt a strange tingling sensation in his hands. On impulse, he reached out and touched a nearby computer terminal. To his shock, he found himself interfacing directly with the system, accessing and processing vast amounts of data at unprecedented speeds. "Dr. Carter," he called out, his voice tight with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Something's happening. I can access the station systems directly." Dr. Carter hurried over, his medical scanner whirring. "Fascinating. Your exposure to the Guardian Station's energy seems to have triggered further mutations. Your neural pathways are reconfiguring to interface with technology at a fundamental level." Kyle focused, sifting through the station's databases at lightning speed. "There's so much here. Research data, ship logs, personnel files. Wait, what's this?" John Reeves, who had just arrived with reinforcements, leaned in. "What did you find?" "Encrypted files," Kyle replied, his brow furrowed in concentration. "They're heavily protected, but I can see glimpses. It's a Zen Theory outpost, hidden in a nearby asteroid field. It looks like a forward operating base for their forces in this sector." Mike Thompson, returning from a security sweep, whistled low. "That's a game changer. If we could infiltrate that outpost." Kyle nodded, his decision already made. "Agreed. We need to investigate. But first, we need to secure the station and its research." Over the next few hours, Kyle coordinated the evacuation of the station's personnel and the salvage of critical research data. His newfound ability to interface with the station systems proved invaluable, allowing him to bypass damaged systems and recover data that would have otherwise been lost. As the last of the evacuees were transferred to the fleet's ships, Kyle gathered his core team in the station's command center. "We have an opportunity here," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the decision. "The intelligence we've gathered suggests a hidden Zen Theory outpost nearby. I propose we mount a covert operation to infiltrate and gather intel." John Reeves nodded, his tactical mind already at work. "It's risky, but the potential payoff is enormous. We could gain invaluable insight into their plans and capabilities." "I'm in," Mike said without hesitation. "My survival skills might come in handy in unfamiliar territory." Dr. Carter looked concerned, but determined. "I'll stay behind and continue work on the propulsion system. With the data we've salvaged, I think we're close to a breakthrough." Kyle turned to Captain Corvex. Captain, we found a damaged Zen Theory shuttle in the station's hangar. With your help, we might be able to retrofit it for our mission. The Daxamite captain nodded. Consider it done, Commander. We'll make it space-worthy within the hour. As the team dispersed to prepare, Kyle established a secure communication link with Admiral Blackwood. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen, lined with concern. Kyle, what's the situation? Kyle quickly briefed him on the rescued scientists, the propulsion system research, and their plan to infiltrate the Zen Theory outpost. Admiral Blackwood's expression was grave. It's a hell of a risk, Kyle, but I trust your judgment. Just remember, we can't afford to lose you or that intelligence. Be careful out there. Understood. Sir, we'll get it done. As the communication ended, Kyle felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He looked out the view screen at the stars beyond, knowing that somewhere out there, the Zen Theory were planning their next move. With grit, he turned to prepare for the mission that could turn the tide of the war. In the station's hangar, the team worked feverishly to prepare the captured Zen Theory shuttle. Kyle selected a small strike force, balancing human and Daxamite operatives for their complementary skills. As they made final preparations, Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be a turning point in the conflict. With a final nod to Dr. Carter and the research team staying behind, Kyle boarded the shuttle. As the hangar doors opened to the vast expanse of space, he steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, carrying them towards the unknown dangers of the Zen Theory outpost and the secrets it held. As the shuttle glided into the inky void, Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that they were venturing into the unknown. Hours passed as they navigated the asteroid field, using the intelligence they had gathered to locate the hidden Zen Theory outpost. The tension on board was palpable, each member of the strike team acutely aware of the risks they were taking. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the shuttle. Mike Thompson, at the helm, cursed under his breath. We've been detected. Zen Theory defensive systems are locking on to us. Kyle rushed to the console, his newly enhanced abilities allowing him to interface directly with the shuttle systems. He worked frantically to boost their shields and evade the incoming fire, but it wasn't enough. A blast rocked the shuttle, sending sparks flying from overloaded circuits. We're losing power, John Reeves shouted, his hands flying over the engineering controls. Hull integrity is compromised. Kyle gritted his teeth, using his powers to reinforce the weakening structure of the shuttle. We need to complete the mission, he said, his voice strained with effort. Can we still make it to the outpost? Mike nodded grimly. We're close, but it's going to be a rough landing. The shuttle careened towards the asteroid housing the Zen Theory base, dodging energy beams and debris. With a bone-jarring impact, they crashed into the rocky surface, skidding to a halt just outside the outpost perimeter. Everyone out, Kyle ordered, helping a wounded team member to his feet. We need to move before they send out search parties. As they emerged from the battered shuttle, Kyle saw Mike stumble, clutching his side. A piece of shrapnel had pierced his suit during the crash. I'm fine, Mike insisted, but Kyle could see the pain in his eyes. They made their way into the outpost, using the element of surprise to overcome the initial Zen Theory resistance. Kyle's enhanced abilities proved invaluable as he interfaced with the base's systems, downloading crucial intelligence while the team fought off waves of defenders. John Reeves called out from a nearby console, Kyle, I've found something. It's a detailed plan for a massive invasion fleet. They're planning to hit Earth and Daxam simultaneously. Kyle's heart raced as he processed the implications. Download everything you can. We need to get this information back to Admiral Blackwood. As they fought their way back to the shuttle, the true cost of their mission became clear. Mike's condition had worsened, and several other team members had sustained injuries. Kyle knew they were in no shape for a prolonged journey. Once aboard the damaged shuttle, Kyle attempted to get their systems back online. The life support flickered ominously, and he could hear the hiss of escaping oxygen. "We're losing air," he announced, his voice tight with concern. Using his newfound abilities, Kyle interfaced with the shuttle's alien technology, desperately trying to reroute power and extend their survival time. The effort was draining, but he managed to buy them a few more hours. "It's not enough," John said, looking at the ship's readouts. "Without rescue, we won't make it back to the station." As they drifted through space, their situation growing increasingly dire, Kyle couldn't help but think of the crucial intelligence they carried. The fate of two worlds might rest in their hands, and they were slowly suffocating in a crippled alien vessel. Just as hope seemed lost, a blinding flash of light engulfed their shuttle. For a moment, Kyle thought they had been hit by Zen theory weapons, but the sensation that followed was unlike anything he had experienced before. It felt as if the very fabric of space was twisting around them. In a disorienting instant, they found themselves in familiar space, the research station looming before them. Relief washed over Kyle, quickly replaced by confusion and alarm as he realized their shuttle was rapidly breaking apart. Drawing on the last reserves of his strength, Kyle generated an energy field to contain the hull breach. He could feel the cold vacuum of space, trying to rush in, held at bay only by his wavering powers. Through the view screen, he saw a maintenance craft approaching, Dr. Carter's determined face visible through the cockpit window. As the rescue team attached a tow cable to their failing shuttle, Kyle allowed himself a moment of hope. They had made it back against the odds, carrying with them intelligence that could change the course of the war. But as the maintenance craft began to guide them towards the station's hangar bay, Kyle knew their ordeal was a long way to go. Mike's condition was critical. Their shuttle was falling apart, and the information they carried could spell doom for Earth and Daxam if they couldn't get it to Admiral Blackwood in time. With a final surge of effort, Kyle maintained the energy field around their shuttle as they entered the hangar bay. The moment they touched down, medical teams rushed in, whisking away the injured. Dr. Carter himself helped Kyle to his feet, steadying him as the strain of his extended power use took its toll. "What happened out there?" Dr. Carter asked, his eyes wide with a mix of concern and scientific curiosity. Kyle, still trying to process the events himself, could only shake his head. "I'm not sure, but whatever it was, it saved our lives. And we've got information that could save a lot more. More lives." As Kyle finished briefing Dr. Carter on their mission, alarms blared throughout the station. The scientist's face paled as he glanced at a nearby console. Zen theory battle fleet detected on long-range sensors. "They're heading straight for us." Kyle's mind raced. They had to warn Earth about the impending invasion, but their shuttle was damaged and the experimental wormhole drive was untested. He locked eyes with Dr. Carter. "How soon can we get that drive operational?" "It's not fully stable yet," Dr. Carter replied, his fingers flying over the controls. "But given our circumstances, we don't have much choice." Kyle nodded grimly. "Prep the shuttle. We leave in 10 minutes. As the team scrambled to gather their equipment and the vital intelligence they recovered, Kyle made a difficult decision. He approached a group of scientists and Daxamite crew members. "I need volunteers to stay behind," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. "We need to buy time for Earth and slow down the Zenthari advance. It's dangerous, but it could make all the difference." To Kyle's surprise, hands shot up immediately, both human and Daxamite. The solidarity between the two species, forged in the crucible of this conflict, was evident in their determined faces. Kyle quickly selected a small team, briefing them on their mission to continue research and destroy sensitive data if capture became imminent. As he shook hands with the volunteers, he felt a surge of admiration for their bravery. With time ticking away, Kyle and his core team boarded the modified shuttle. Dr. Carter's hands moved in a blur over the wormhole drive controls, making last-minute adjustments. "It's as ready as it'll ever be," Dr. Carter announced, his voice tight with tension. Through the view screen, Kyle saw the first Zen Theory ships entering the system. "Now or never," he muttered. "Activate the drive." A swirling vortex of energy erupted in space before them. Kyle felt the shuttle lurch as it was pulled into the wormhole, narrowly escaping the grasping tendrils of the Zen Theory tractor beams. The journey through the wormhole was unlike anything Kyle had experienced. The shuttle shuddered and groaned under immense gravitational forces. Energy fluctuations sent arcs of electricity dancing across the consoles. Kyle reached out with his enhanced abilities, interfacing directly with the shuttle systems. He created an energy field to reinforce the craft's structural integrity, feeling the strain in every fiber of his being. Beside him, Dr. Carter worked feverishly to maintain the wormhole's stability. "The portal's collapsing," he shouted over the din of creaking metal and emergency alarms. Gritting his teeth, Kyle pushed his powers to their limit. He channeled his energy directly into the wormhole drive, providing the extra boost needed to keep the portal open. Just when it seemed they couldn't hold on any longer, the shuttle burst out of the wormhole. Kyle's relief was short-lived as he realized they weren't where they expected to be. "That's Jupiter," Mike Thompson said weakly from his position at the sensor station. He was still pale from his injuries, but his eyes were sharp as ever. Before Kyle could respond, alarms blared once again. The shuttle, damaged from its journey, was being pulled towards the gas giant's crushing atmosphere. "Our calculations were off by millions of miles," Dr. Carter said, his voice filled with dismay. "The drive's completely burned out. We're stuck here." Kyle's mind raced, searching for options. His eyes fell on one of Jupiter's moons, its icy surface gleaming in the dim sunlight. "Europa," he said. "It's our only chance." "Mike, can you get us there?" Mike nodded, his hands already moving across the navigation controls. "It'll be rough, but I'll get us down." The shuttle streaked through Europa's thin atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot from the friction. Kyle poured every ounce of his remaining strength into maintaining a protective energy field around the craft. As they hurtled towards the icy surface, Kyle felt his consciousness slipping. The strain of using his powers for so long was pushing him beyond his limits. Through blurred vision, he saw Dr. Carter and John Reeves working frantically at their stations, trying to give him the power he needed to land safely. With a bone-jarring impact, the shuttle skidded across Europa's frozen landscape. Kyle felt rather than saw the deep crevasse looming before them. In a final, desperate act, he generated an energy barrier that brought the shuttle to a halt mere feet from the edge. As silence fell over the craft, Kyle slumped in his seat, utterly spent. They had survived, but at what cost? They were stranded on a remote, hostile moon with limited resources and no way to contact Earth. And somewhere out there, the Zen Theory invasion fleet was bearing down on an unsuspecting planet. Dr. Carter's voice broke through Kyle's exhausted haze. "The wormhole drive is completely fried," he reported. "But I think I might have an idea. Europa's subsurface ocean. If we can access it, we might find the materials we need to repair our communications array." John Reeves nodded, already pulling up the encrypted Zen Theory data on his tablet. "I'll keep working on decrypting this. There might be something in here that could help us get off this ice cube." Kyle forced himself to his feet, swaying slightly as he looked out at the barren, icy landscape of Europa. They had escaped one danger only to face another, but the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. They had to find a way to warn Earth, regardless of the cost. "All right," Kyle said, his voice hoarse but determined. "Let's get to work. We've got a planet to save." "Save. We've got a planet to survive on first," Kyle finished, his gaze sweeping across the battered shuttle interior. The reality of their situation hit home as the life support system sputtered and wheezed. Alarms blared, signaling rapidly failing environmental controls. Kyle's mind raced, knowing they had mere minutes before the harsh conditions of Europa would overwhelm them. "Everyone, gather what you can," he ordered, already moving toward the shuttle's exit. "We need to establish a perimeter outside. Now." As the team scrambled to collect supplies, Kyle stepped onto Europa's icy surface. The cold bit through his suit instantly, and he could feel the radiation prickling his skin. Summoning his strength, he extended his hands outward, focusing his energy. A shimmering dome of blue-green light expanded from Kyle's palms, growing to encompass the crash site. The temperature inside the barrier rose immediately, and the oppressive feeling of radiation faded. Dr. Carter emerged from the shuttle, his eyes wide with wonder. "Remarkable," he breathed, reaching out to touch the energy field. "This should buy us some time." Mike limped out next, supported by John. "Nice work, Kyle," he said through gritted teeth. "But how long can you keep this up?" Kyle felt the strain of maintaining the dome already tugging at his reserves. "Long enough for us to figure out our next move," he replied, hoping he sounded more confident than he felt. As the team unloaded supplies, Dr. Carter began assessing their resources. "Our primary concern is power," he announced, gesturing to the shuttle's damaged systems. "Without it, we lose life support, communication, everything." John, still working on his tablet, suddenly let out a triumphant shout. "I've got something! The Zen theory data. It mentions a network of alien relays throughout the solar system. And there's one here on Europa." Kyle's heart raced at the possibility. "Can we use it to contact Earth?" "Potentially," John nodded, "but it's likely deep beneath the ice. Getting to it won't be easy." As they discussed their options, a low rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. Kyle steadied himself, alarmed. What was that? Dr. Carter rushed to a makeshift sensor array he'd assembled. "Seismic activity," he reported, brow furrowed. "But it's not random. These patterns, they could be related to the alien relay's location." Kyle made a quick decision. "We need to investigate. Dr. Carter, you're with me. We'll take Krell-Tor too," he added, nodding to the Daxamite engineer who'd been quietly reinforcing their shelter. Mike pushed himself to his feet, wincing. "I should come too." "No," Kyle said firmly. "You need to rest. Besides, we need you here. Set up a rationing system, organize our supplies. You've got more survival experience than any of us." Reluctantly, Mike nodded. "Be careful out there," he said as Kyle's team prepared to depart. Using equipment salvaged from the shuttle, they fashioned crude ice drilling tools. Kyle led the way across Europa's treacherous terrain, his enhanced strength allowing him to navigate the unstable ice sheets. Krell-Tor's heightened senses proved invaluable, warning them of hidden crevasses and thin ice. After hours of grueling travel, they reached the epicenter of the seismic disturbances. Before them yawned a massive fissure in the ice, revealing glimpses of the vast ocean below. "Incredible," Dr. Carter breathed, peering into the depths. "We always suspected Europa harbored an ocean, but to see it." His words trailed off as something massive moved in the water below. Kyle tensed, ready for action. Suddenly, a colossal, bioluminescent form breached the surface, spraying icy water into the air. "By all that's holy!" Krell-Tor whispered, his alien features registering shock. The creature before them defied easy description. Part whale, part eel, its body glowed with patterns of soft blue light. It regarded them with enormous, intelligent eyes. Kyle felt a strange tingling in his mind. Acting on instinct, he reached out with his energy, forming a tendril of light that connected with the creature's bioluminescent patterns. Images flooded Kyle's mind, vast underwater cities, networks of ice tunnels, and at the center of it all, an ancient structure of clearly artificial origin. "The relay," Kyle gasped, breaking the connection. "They know where it is. And I think they're willing to help us. Dr. Carter looked skeptical. You're saying these creatures are intelligent? That you communicated with them? Kyle nodded, still processing the experience. They call themselves, well, the closest translation would be frost whales. And they're not just intelligent. They're the key to reaching the relay. As if in response, the frost whale let out a melodious song that reverberated through the ice. More of its kind surfaced, creating a living bridge into the depths below. I guess that's our invitation, Krelltor said, checking his oxygen supply. Kyle took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. Let's go, he said, stepping toward the waiting frost whales. We've got a message to send. As they descended into Europa's hidden ocean, guided by their newfound alien allies, Kyle couldn't help but wonder what other secrets this icy moon held, and whether their desperate mission would be enough to save Earth from the coming storm. As they ascended from Europa's hidden depths, Kyle and his team marveled at the bioluminescent display of the frost whales guiding them back to the surface. The alien relay's activation had been a success, but as they breached the icy crust, a new reality set in. Days passed with no response to their transmitted message. The team's initial elation gave way to a gnawing anxiety about Earth's fate. Kyle expanded their habitable area, channeling his energy into a larger, more stable dome structure that encompassed their crash site and the surrounding terrain. Dr. Carter and Krelltor immersed themselves in studying Europa's unique composition. Their makeshift lab buzzed with activity as they analyzed ice samples and tested theories. Kyle, take a look at this, Dr. Carter called out one evening, his eyes bright with excitement. He held up a vial containing a shimmering, iridescent substance. We've isolated a rare element in Europa's ice. If we can extract enough, it could power our shuttle systems. Krelltor nodded, his alien features set in concentration. The molecular structure is unlike anything I've seen. With some modifications, we might even enhance the wormhole drive's capabilities. Hope sparked in Kyle's chest, but he tempered it with caution. What's the catch? Dr. Carter's expression sobered. Extraction is dangerous. We'll need to drill deep into unstable ice formations, risking collapse at any moment. Kyle weighed their options. We don't have much choice. Let's start planning the operation. As they strategized, John Reeves burst into the lab, his tablet clutched tightly. I've cracked another layer of the Zen theory data, he announced, his voice tight with urgency. They're not just targeting Earth. The Daxamite homeworld is on their hit list too. The team gathered around as John displayed a holographic map of both solar systems, key targets highlighted in ominous red. These are their primary objectives, he explained, pointing to military installations, power grids, and major population centers. Kyle's mind raced with the implications. This information could be crucial for mounting a defense. If only we could get it to our allies. Their discussion was interrupted by Mike Thompson's arrival. Since recovering from his injuries, Mike had taken charge of communications with the frost whales. You're going to want to see this, he said, leading them outside. The sight that greeted them was breathtaking. Hundreds of frost whales had gathered around their base, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in complex rhythms. Mike grinned. They're offering to help us search for those rare elements you need. Their knowledge of Europa's underwater geography is incredible. Over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly. Guided by the frost whales, they established a network of drilling sites, carefully extracting the precious elements needed for their repairs. Kyle's energy manipulation abilities proved invaluable, stabilizing ice formations and protecting the team from dangerous collapses. As their stockpile of the rare element grew, Dr. Carter and Krelltor made significant progress on the shuttle repairs. However, the work was nowhere near the end. One evening, as Kyle monitored the energy dome, he noticed a series of unusual readings on their sensor array. Dr. Carter, he called out, Are you seeing this?" The scientist hurried over, his brow furrowing as he analyzed the data. "Fascinating. There's a massive energy signature emanating from beneath the surface. It's like nothing we've encountered so far." Kyle made a quick decision. "We need to investigate. Kreltor, you're with me. We'll take a small team of frost whales as guides." They set out across Europa's treacherous landscape, following the energy readings to their source. After hours of careful navigation through winding ice tunnels, they emerged into a vast underwater cavern. At its center stood a structure that was unmistakably artificial, sleek, geometric, and pulsing with an otherworldly energy. "An alien outpost," Kreltor breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. As they approached, Kyle felt a familiar tingling in his mind. Acting on instinct, he reached out with his energy, connecting with the outpost systems. Information flooded his consciousness. Images of a long-lost civilization, advanced technology beyond their wildest dreams, and a network that spanned the galaxy. "It's precursor technology," Kyle gasped, breaking the connection. "This outpost. It's part of something much bigger." Before they could fully process this revelation, the outpost defenses activated. Swarms of automated drones materialized, their weapons trained on the intruders. Kyle's energy shield sprang to life, just as the first volley of attacks hit. "Kreltor, see if you can disable the security systems." Kyle shouted, deflecting another barrage of energy blasts. "I'll hold them off." As Kreltor worked feverishly to hack into the outpost controls, Kyle found himself pushed to the limits of his abilities. The drones attacked relentlessly, their tactics growing more sophisticated with each wave. Kyle's energy manipulations evolved in response, manifesting in ways he had never experienced before. Arcs of crackling energy danced between his fingertips as he redirected the drones' attacks back at them. He formed complex, multi-layered shields that adapted to each new threat. In a moment of desperate inspiration, Kyle even managed to temporarily take control of a drone, using it to fight off its companions. Just as Kyle felt his strength beginning to wane, Kreltor let out a triumphant shout. The drones froze in midair, then clattered harmlessly to the ground. "I've done it!" the Daxamite engineer exclaimed. "The security systems are offline." As the dust settled, Kyle became aware of a new sound, a low, pulsing hum that seemed to emanate from the very core of the outpost. A holographic interface flickered to life before them, displaying streams of alien text and diagrams. "Kyle," Kreltor said, his voice filled with awe and a hint of fear, "I think we just activated some kind of distress beacon. And judging by the power readings, its signal could reach halfway across the galaxy." Before Kyle could respond, their comms crackled to life. Dr. Carter's voice came through, tense with excitement. "Kyle, are you responsible for the energy surge we're detecting? It's off the charts. If we can harness that power, we might be able to boost our communications array enough to reach Earth." As Kyle and Kreltor exchanged looks of cautious optimism, a new alert caught their attention. The outpost sensors had detected multiple objects entering Europa's orbit, ships of unknown origin, drawn by the ancient distress call. Kyle's mind raced with the implications. Had they just invited salvation or a new threat? With Earth's fate hanging in the balance and unknown forces descending upon them, he knew their next moves would be crucial. The mysteries of the precursor outpost would have to wait. It was time to prepare for first contact. Contact. The tension in the air was palpable as Kyle and his team braced for the unknown. Suddenly, their communications array crackled to life. A deep, authoritative voice filled the command center. "This is Captain Lorvan of the Daxamite cruiser Starfire. We've picked up your distress signal. Identify yourselves." Kyle exchanged quick glances with his team before responding. "This is Kyle Phillips. We're a joint human Daxamite expedition. Captain, we have critical information about an impending Zen invasion." There was a pause before Lorvan replied, his tone grave. Understood. We're preparing to dock. Stand by for our arrival. As the Daxamite ship maneuvered into position, Kyle's enhanced senses picked up something else, a faint but unmistakable energy signature at the edge of their sensor range. His heart sank as he realized what it meant. "We've got company," he announced, pulling up a holographic display. Multiple Zen-theory vessels entering the Jovian system. Dr. Carter's face paled. They must have intercepted the distress signal, too. Kyle's mind raced, weighing their options. They had vital intelligence that could turn the tide of the coming war, but they also couldn't abandon the frost whales or the invaluable precursor technology they'd discovered. "We need to split up," Kyle decided, his voice firm. "Dr. Carter, John, you'll take half the team and board the Daxamite cruiser. Get that invasion data to Earth's defense forces." "What about you?" Dr. Carter asked, concern etched on his face. Kyle set his jaw. "I'm staying. We can't leave the frost whales defenseless, and we need to protect this outpost. Its technology could be the key to defeating the Zen-theory." Mike Thompson stepped forward. "I'm staying too. My survival skills and connection with the frost whales could be crucial." As the team rushed to prepare for the split, Kyle channeled his energy into the outpost systems, enhancing its cloaking capabilities. The Daxamite ship docked, and within minutes, Dr. Carter's group was aboard with the critical data. "Good luck," Kyle called out as the airlock sealed. He watched the cruiser depart, streaking away from Europa just as the first Zen-theory energy blast lit up the moon's atmosphere. "Everyone, into the outpost," Kyle shouted. He led the remaining team members in a group of frost whales through winding ice tunnels, sealing the entrance behind them. The vast underwater chamber hummed with alien energy as Kyle interfaced with the precursor systems. "Kreltor, help me activate the defensive protocols," Kyle instructed. His hands danced over holographic interfaces, power surging through his body as he merged his abilities with the ancient technology. Outside, the Zen-theory assault intensified. Massive energy beams slammed into Europa's surface, sending shockwaves through the icy crust. Kyle gritted his teeth, pushing his powers to their limit as he reinforced the moon's structure through the outpost systems. "The frost whales are agitated," Mike reported, his eyes closed in concentration as he communicated with the alien creatures. "They can sense the damage being done to their home." "We need to buy more time," Kyle muttered. He turned to Kreltor. "Any progress on those weapon systems?" The Daxamite engineer nodded, his fingers flying over a complex control panel. "I think I've cracked it. We can generate an energy pulse strong enough to disable the Zen-theory ships in orbit." "But," Kyle prompted, sensing the hesitation in Kreltor's voice. "But it'll give away our position," Kreltor confirmed. "And the pulse could have unforeseen effects on Europa's ocean." Before Kyle could respond, Mike called out an alarm. "We've got incoming. Zen-theory probes entering the subsurface ocean." Kyle's mind raced. They couldn't risk exposure, not yet. But those probes posed a deadly threat to both their hideout and the frost whales. He needed a way to deal with the probes without revealing their location. An idea struck him. Dangerous, possibly insane, but potentially their only option. "Kreltor, can we use the precursor tech to boost my energy manipulation abilities?" The engineer's eyes widened. "Theoretically, yes. But Kyle, the risks." "We don't have a choice," Kyle cut him off. "If I can enhance my powers, I might be able to control those probes without giving us away." As Kreltor hesitantly began the process, Kyle turned to Mike. "Get the frost whales to safety, deeper into the outpost. If this goes wrong..." Mike nodded grimly, already communing with the massive creatures. Kyle stepped onto a circular platform at the center of the chamber. Precursor technology hummed to life around him, tendrils of energy snaking across his skin. He gasped as power, like he'd never felt before, surged through his body. "Probes are almost on us," Kreltor warned, monitoring a sensor display. Kyle took a deep breath, reaching out with his amplified senses. He could feel the probes now, their alien circuitry singing to him. With a thought, he extended his consciousness, grasping for control. The first probe shuddered, its lights flickering. Kyle's face contorted with effort as he fought against the Zen theory programming. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he pushed harder, feeling the strain on his enhanced abilities. Suddenly, the probe's lights changed color. It stopped its advance, hovering in place. "It's working," Kreltor exclaimed. Kyle didn't respond, his focus absolute as he reached for the next probe and the next. One by one, he wrestled control away from the Zen theory, building a network of hijacked machines. But as his influence spread, Kyle felt something else, a vast, alien consciousness pushing back against him. The Zen theory were becoming aware of his interference. As the battle of wills intensified, Kyle realized he was at a crossroads. He could withdraw now, preserving their secrecy but leaving them vulnerable to future attacks. Or he could push harder, possibly exposing their location, but gaining a powerful weapon against the invaders. With the fate of Earth, Europa, and countless lives hanging in the balance, Kyle made his choice. He pushed his newfound powers to their absolute limit, prepared to face whatever consequences might come. Come, channeling every ounce of his newfound power, Kyle prepared to push beyond his limits. Suddenly, the outpost sensors blared with urgent alerts. Kyle's concentration wavered as Kreltor's voice cut through the chaos. "Kyle, wait. Something's happening." Kyle reluctantly pulled back from his mental struggle with the Zen theory probes, gasping as the strain of his efforts hit him. He turned to Kreltor, who was frantically analyzing a flood of incoming data. "There's a massive energy surge coming from Jupiter," Kreltor explained, his eyes wide with disbelief. "It's causing electromagnetic disturbances throughout the entire system." As if on cue, the probes Kyle had been battling began to falter. Their movements became erratic, their sensors clearly struggling to maintain coherence in the face of the unexpected interference. Mike rushed to a nearby console, his expression a mix of relief and concern. The Zen theory ships in orbit are experiencing similar issues. Their navigation systems are going haywire. Kyle's mind raced, quickly assessing this unexpected turn of events. "This buys us time," he said, his voice hoarse from exertion. "But we need to act fast. Kreltor, how soon can we begin the enhancement procedure?" The Daxamite engineer hesitated, clearly torn between the urgency of their situation and the risks involved. "Kyle, I must warn you again. This process is incredibly dangerous. We don't fully understand the precursor technology, and the strain on your physiology could be—" "We don't have a choice," Kyle interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. "Every second we waste puts Earth and countless other worlds at risk. I'm ready." Kreltor nodded grimly and began making rapid adjustments to the precursor equipment surrounding them. As he worked, Kyle turned to Mike. "While I'm undergoing the procedure, I need you to coordinate with the frost whales. See if they can help us conceal the outpost further." Mike nodded, already reaching out with his mind to communicate with their alien allies. "I have an idea," he said. "There's a species of bioluminescent algae native to Europa's oceans. If we can manipulate it correctly, we might be able to blend our energy signatures with the natural environment." Kyle managed a weak smile. "Good thinking. Get on it." As Mike set to work with the frost whales, Kyle took his position at the center of the precursor enhancement array. Kreltor's fingers flew over alien controls, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Ready?" the engineer asked, his hand hovering over the final activation sequence. Kyle took a deep breath and nodded. "Do it." The world exploded into light and pain. Kyle felt as if every nerve in his body was on fire. His consciousness stretched and pulled in impossible directions. Through the haze of agony, vivid images flashed before his eyes. Glimpses of a long-lost civilization, of technology beyond imagination, of a universe teeming with wonders and terrors alike. He saw the rise of the precursors, their spread across the galaxy, the height of their power and knowledge. And then, with sickening clarity, he witnessed their fall, a cataclysm born of their own hubris, a mistake that wiped them from existence and left only scattered remnants of their legacy behind. Kyle wasn't sure how long the process lasted. It could have been minutes or days. When he finally regained awareness of his surroundings, he found himself on his knees, gasping for breath. Krell Tor knelt beside him, concern etched on his features. "Kyle, can you hear me? How do you feel?" Kyle opened his mouth to respond, but before he could form words, a new sensation overwhelmed him. He could feel the energy flowing through the outpost, through Europa itself. The subsurface ocean, the ice above, even the distant warmth of Jupiter. All of it pulsed with life and power that he could now perceive, and he realized with a mix of awe and trepidation. Manipulate. I can sense everything, Kyle managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Before Krell Tor could respond, Mike's urgent voice cut through the chamber. "We've got a problem. A Zen battlecruiser just entered Europa's orbit. They're deploying some kind of massive drilling device." Kyle staggered to his feet, pushing through the discomfort of his newly enhanced senses. He extended his awareness, easily bypassing the outpost systems to perceive the threat above. "They're trying to breach the ice shell," he said, his voice growing stronger as he focused. "If they succeed, they'll expose the entire subsurface ocean. We have to stop them." Kyle reached out with his mind, interfacing directly with the precursor outpost systems. Information flooded his consciousness. The true extent of the ancient alien network, its capabilities, its secrets. He saw similar facilities spread throughout the solar system, all connected by a subspace grid that had lain dormant for eons. "This is it," Kyle breathed, his eyes wide with realization. "This network, it's the key to stopping the invasion." As the team watched in a mix of awe and apprehension, Kyle's body began to glow with ethereal energy. He raised his hands, and the entire chamber hummed with power. "I'm activating the network," he announced, his voice strained with effort. "All of it, simultaneously. Brace yourselves." A pulse of energy unlike anything they had ever experienced erupted from the outpost, spreading outward in an invisible wave. Above, the Zen ships and probes sparked and went dark, their systems overloaded by the massive surge. But the pulse had another unexpected effect. As it washed over Jupiter, several cloaked ships suddenly flickered into view, an advanced scout force of the Zen invasion fleet, their stealth systems disrupted by the energy wave. Kyle's eyes widened as he processed this new information. Without hesitation, he pushed his abilities even further, establishing a direct subspace link with Earth's Defense Command and the Daxamite High Council. "I'm transmitting everything we know about the Zen fleet," he said through gritted teeth. "Their position, capabilities, invasion plans, all of it." As Kyle maintained a long-range communication, the strain on his enhanced body became evident. Blood trickled from his nose, and his skin grew pale and clammy. "Kyle, you need to stop," Krell Tor shouted, moving to support him as he swayed on his feet. "You're going to kill yourself." But Kyle held on, determined to complete the transmission. As the last bits of crucial data flowed through the subspace link, he finally released his hold on the network. The glow faded from his body, and he collapsed into Krell Tor's arms, unconscious but alive. As Krell Tor and Mike rushed to stabilize, Kyle, using a combination of precursor medical technology and Daxamite expertise, the weight of their situation settled upon them. They had won a significant victory, but the war was far from finished. The disabled Zen fleet was only a temporary reprieve, and the team now faced a crucial decision: remain hidden on Europa to protect their valuable discoveries, or embark on a perilous journey to gather the components needed for the ultimate defensive weapon hidden within the precursor network. With Kyle unconscious and the fate of multiple worlds hanging in the balance, the team prepared to make a choice that would shape the course of the coming conflict. As Kyle lay unconscious, the weight of their recent actions settled upon the team. Kreltor and Mike worked tirelessly, using a combination of precursor medical technology and Daxamite expertise to stabilize Kyle's condition. The hours ticked by, filled with tense silence broken only by the soft hum of alien machinery. Finally, Kyle's eyes fluttered open. He groaned, pushing himself up on shaky arms. What? What happened? You nearly killed yourself. That's what happened, Kreltor replied, relief evident in his voice. But you did it. You transmitted the data and disabled the Zen fleet. Kyle nodded, his memories slowly returning. He looked around the chamber, taking in the concerned faces of his teammates. We don't have much time, he said, his voice growing stronger. The disabled fleet is just a temporary setback. We need to act fast. Over the next few hours, the team engaged in intense discussion, weighing their options and the potential consequences of each course of action. The debate was heated at times, with differing opinions on the best way to proceed. We can't abandon the outpost, Mike argued. It's our only secure base of operations, and the frost whales need our protection. But if we stay here, we're sitting ducks, Kreltor countered. The Zen will eventually regroup and find us. We need to take the fight to them. Kyle listened to both sides, his newly enhanced senses allowing him to perceive the underlying currents of fear and grit in his teammates. Finally, he spoke. We need to split up. It's the only way to accomplish everything we need to do. The team fell silent, considering Kyle's words. He continued, outlining his plan. I'll lead a small expedition to gather the components for the precursor defensive weapon. Mike, you and a portion of the team will stay here to protect the frost whales and maintain the outpost. After further discussion and refinement of the plan, the team set to work. Using the precursor technology at their disposal, they modified a small spacecraft salvage from their original shuttle. Kreltor's expertise proved invaluable as they enhanced the craft's propulsion and stealth capabilities. As the preparations neared completion, Kyle established a secure communication link with Mike's team using the precursor subspace network. The frost whales, now fully integrated into their operations, agreed to act as guardians of the Europa outpost in Kyle's absence. The moment of departure arrived all too quickly. Kyle stood at the entrance to their modified craft, facing Mike and the team members staying behind. No words were needed. The gravity of their mission was etched on every face. Kyle nodded to his friend, then turned and entered the spacecraft. Kreltor and two other team members followed. As the hatch sealed behind them, Kyle took his place at the controls, interfacing directly with the ship's systems using his enhanced abilities. The launch from Europa was smooth and silent. Kyle guided the craft through the moon's icy crust, emerging into the vast expanse of space. Jupiter loomed before them, its swirling storms a chaotic tapestry of color. Initiating slingshot maneuver, Kyle announced, his hands dancing over the controls. The ship accelerated, riding Jupiter's gravitational field to gain the velocity needed for their journey. As they hurtled through space, Kreltor reviewed their mission parameters. The first component is located in a precursor facility on Mars. We'll need to be cautious. Our scans indicate increased Zen activity in the area. Kyle nodded, his enhanced senses stretching out to scan the space around them. They're searching for precursor technology, too. We'll have to stay one step ahead of them. Days passed as they journeyed towards a red planet. Kyle spent much of his time in deep concentration, familiarizing himself with his new abilities and the intricacies of the precursor technology integrated into their ship. As Mars grew larger in their view screen, Kyle detected a flurry of activity around the planet. Zen Theory ships, he reported. They're focused on the southern hemisphere. We'll approach from the north and use the planet's magnetic field to mask our signature. Their descent towards Mars was tense, with Kyle pushing their ship's stealth capabilities to the limit. They touched down near the base of Olympus Mons, the massive volcano dominating the Martian landscape. The facility is located beneath the surface, Kreltor said, studying the readouts on his portable scanner. We'll need to navigate through a network of lava tubes to reach it. Kyle stepped out onto the rust-colored Martian soil, his enhanced senses immediately picking up on the subtle vibrations beneath his feet. I can feel the volcanic activity, he said. It's alive, in a way. I think I can guide us safely through the tunnels. The team donned their protective suits and began their descent into the heart of Olympus Mons. Kyle led the way, his glowing hand outstretched as he sensed the flow of energy through the ancient lava tubes. As they ventured deeper, the tunnels became increasingly treacherous. Pockets of superheated gas and unstable rock formations threatened their progress at every turn. Kyle's abilities were pushed to their limits as he worked to keep the team safe. After hours of careful navigation, they finally reached a massive stone door embedded in the tunnel wall. Ancient glyphs covered its surface, pulsing with a faint blue light. This is it, Kreltor breathed. The entrance to the precursor facility. Kyle stepped forward, placing his hand on the door. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind to interface with the alien technology. The glyphs flared brightly, and with a low rumble, the door began to slide open. As the team entered the facility, they were met with a sight that took their breath away. A vast chamber stretched out before them, filled with technology beyond their wildest imaginings. At its center stood a pulsing pillar of energy, the first component of the precursor defensive weapon. Kyle moved towards the pillar, his hand outstretched. But before he could reach it, the air around them shimmered. Holographic projections sprang to life, filling the chamber with ghostly images of a long-lost civilization. The team watched in awe as the history of precursors played out before them. They saw the height of their power, their spread across the galaxy, and then their fall, a cataclysmic event born of their own hubris that wiped them from existence. As the holographic display faded, Kyle turned to his team, his face pale. "We need to be careful," he said. "The power we're dealing with here, it's beyond anything we've encountered before." Suddenly, an alarm blared through the facility. Kreltor rushed to a nearby console, his fingers flying over the alien controls. "We've been detected," he said, his voice tight with tension. "A Zen Theory scout ship is descending towards Olympus Mons." Kyle's mind raced, calculating their options. They had the component they came for, but escaping the planet without being noticed by the Zen Theory seemed impossible. As he prepared to make a decision that could alter the course of their mission, a priority message came through on their secure channel. It was Mike, his voice filled with urgency. "Kyle, we have a problem on Europa. The energy pulse has destabilized the moon's structure. A massive fissure has opened in the ice shell. We're working with the frost whales to contain it, but we need help. Without additional precursor technology, we might lose the outpost and expose the entire subsurface ocean." Kyle closed his eyes, the weight of command settling heavily on his shoulders. The fate of their mission, their allies on Europa, and potentially the entire solar system now hinged on his next decision. Time was running out, and the consequences of his choice would ripple across the galaxy. Kyle took a deep breath, centering himself as he made his decision. "Kreltor, take half the team and head back to Europa," Kyle said, his voice steady despite the weight of his choice. "Use the precursor tech we've gathered to stabilize the moon structure. The rest of us will continue to the asteroid belt for the next component." Krell nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Within minutes, the team had split, with Krell group racing back towards Europa in their modified craft. As Kyle led the remaining team members towards the asteroid belt, their ship's sensors lit up with activity. Kyle's enhanced senses tingled, picking up on the subtle disturbances in space. Massive Zen convoy detected, he announced, his fingers dancing over the controls. They're moving through the belt. This could be our chance to gather critical intelligence. Kyle guided their ship through the asteroid field, using the floating rocks as cover. His newly honed abilities allowed him to navigate the treacherous terrain with uncanny precision, narrowly avoiding collisions that would have spelled certain doom for less skilled pilots. They found a suitable asteroid near the convoy's path and touched down in a deep crater. Kyle stepped out onto the rocky surface, placing his hand on the ground. He closed his eyes, concentrating intensely as he interfaced with the asteroid's mineral composition. "I'm creating a network of tunnels," he explained to his team. "We'll use them to get into position around the convoy's route." As Kyle worked, the rock beneath their feet seemed to come alive, shifting and reforming to create a complex series of passageways. The team moved through these newly formed tunnels, taking up strategic positions as Kyle coordinated their efforts through the precursor subspace network. When the Zen ships entered the perfect position, Kyle gave the signal. A series of controlled asteroid collisions rocked the convoy, disabling several supply ships without destroying them completely. "Now!" Kyle shouted, leading his team in a daring spacewalk towards one of the disabled Zen vessels. As they breached the ship's airlock, they were met with fierce resistance. The Zen crew, though caught off guard, fought with a ferocity that caught even Kyle by surprise. He ducked under a swing from a Zen warrior, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to move with inhuman speed. Kyle raised his hand, focusing his energy manipulation abilities. A burst of concentrated force knocked back several Zen soldiers, sending them floating in the zero-gravity environment. He was careful to modulate his power, avoiding damage to the ship's hull that could prove catastrophic for everyone aboard. As the team pushed deeper into the ship, they encountered a Zen officer who stood out from the rest. Instead of attacking, he raised his hands in surrender. "I am Korvax," the alien said, his voice translated through their communication devices. "I wish to help you. Not all Zen support this invasion." Kyle studied the alien, his enhanced senses detecting no deception. "Why should we trust you?" he asked, keeping his guard up. Korvax's eyes darted nervously to his fallen comrades. "There is a faction among us who believe this war goes against our true purpose. I can provide you with valuable information, but we must hurry." With Korvax's assistance, the team quickly accessed the ship's data core. Kyle interfaced directly with the alien technology, his mind racing as he absorbed the wealth of information about the Zen invasion fleet, their battle plans, and the location of their forward staging area. As they prepared to leave, Kyle received an urgent communication from Krell. "Kyle, we've stabilized Europa, but something unexpected has happened. The precursor technology activated a dormant system in the underwater outpost. We've uncovered star charts and coordinates for facilities beyond our solar system, including a massive space station. It could be crucial for completing the defensive weapon." Kyle's mind raced with the implications of this discovery. Their original plan to head to the asteroid base now seemed less pressing in light of this new information. Before he could fully process the situation, alarms blared throughout the Zen ship. "Reinforcements are coming," Korvax warned, his alien features tense with worry. Kyle nodded, making a split-second decision. "We're leaving. Korvax, you're coming with us. Your knowledge could be invaluable." As they retreated to their ship, Kyle used his abilities to conceal their escape, manipulating the energy signatures around them to mask their presence from the approaching Zen fleet. Once safely aboard their own vessel, Kyle established a secure connection with Earth's Defense Command. Admiral Blackwood, I'm transmitting crucial intelligence on the Zen invasion force. This information is vital for coordinating our defenses. As the data streamed to Earth, Kyle turned to his team, their faces expectant. We have a choice to make, he said, his voice grave. We can continue to the asteroid base as planned, or we can investigate this precursor space station. Both options carry risks, but the station's advanced technology could give us a significant advantage. The ship's engines hummed as they pushed to their limit, fleeing the asteroid belt and the approaching Zen reinforcements. Kyle stood at the helm, his enhanced senses stretching out into space, searching for any sign of pursuit as he weighed their options. The fate of Earth, the Daxamites, and countless other species hung in the balance. Whatever choice they made would set the course for the battles to come. As Kyle prepared to make his decision, he knew that the consequences would ripple across the galaxy, shaping the future of this interstellar conflict. The weight of his decision pressed heavily on Kyle's mind as he surveyed his team's expectant faces. After a moment of intense consideration, he made his choice. We're going to investigate the precursor space station, Kyle announced, his voice firm with determination. The advanced technology there could be the key to turning the tide against the Zen invasion. As the team prepared for their new course, Kyle established a secure connection with Earth's Defense Command. Admiral Blackwood, this is Kyle. We're transmitting crucial intelligence on the Zen invasion force. This information is vital for coordinating our defenses. We're also pursuing a lead on a precursor space station that may provide us with a significant advantage. Understood, Kyle. Admiral Blackwood's voice crackled through the comm system. We'll put this intel to good use. Godspeed on your mission. With the coordinates from the Europa outpost locked into their navigation system, Kyle guided their spacecraft beyond the boundaries of the solar system. The ship's engines strained as they pushed to their maximum capacity, propelling them into uncharted space. Hours passed in tense silence as they journeyed deeper into the unknown. Suddenly, the ship's sensors lit up, detecting a massive energy signature directly ahead. There! Kyle exclaimed, pointing to the view screen. A colossal structure materialized before them, its sleek, alien architecture unlike anything they had ever seen. The precursor space station hung suspended in the void, surrounded by a shimmering energy field that pulsed with an otherworldly glow. Kyle stepped forward, placing his hand on the control panel. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his enhanced senses to interface with the energy field. The strain was immediate and intense, causing beads of sweat to form on his forehead. "I can feel it," he said through gritted teeth. "The field's trying to repel us, but I think I can." There! A small opening appeared in the energy barrier, just large enough for their ship to pass through. Kyle expertly maneuvered the craft through the gap, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to navigate the narrow passage with precision. As they docked with the station, Kyle divided the team into two groups. "I'll lead one team to search for the weapon components. Korvax, you take the other team and gather any information you can about the station's purpose and the precursor's history." The team split up, each heading down a different corridor of the vast, abandoned facility. Kyle's group encountered a series of automated defense systems, each more challenging than the last. He used his abilities to bypass them, but each interaction left him visibly drained. "Kyle, are you all right?" one of his team members asked, noticing his pale complexion. "I'm fine," Kyle assured them, though he could feel the toll his powers were taking on his body. "We need to keep moving." After navigating through a maze of corridors and chambers filled with incomprehensible technology, they finally reached what appeared to be a central control room. In the center stood a pedestal housing several advanced components, their purpose unknown, but their importance unmistakable. Meanwhile, Korvax's team made their way to the station's archives. As they sifted through the vast database of information, the Zen defectors' eyes widened in shock. This "This changes everything," he muttered, his alien features contorted in a mix of awe and disbelief. As the teams regrouped to share their findings, the station suddenly hummed to life around them. A holographic interface flickered into existence, coalescing into the form of a being unlike any they had ever encountered. "I am the Guardian," the hologram announced, its voice resonating with ancient wisdom. "I have been waiting for ones such as you to arrive." The AI explained the station's true purpose as a fail-safe against interstellar conflict, and the existence of a powerful device capable of neutralizing advanced weapon systems across vast distances. However, the revelation came with a grave warning. To activate the device requires a compatible organic interface, the Guardian stated, its gaze fixed on Kyle. "You, with your enhanced abilities, may be capable of fulfilling this role. But be warned, the consequences to your physical and mental well-being could be severe." Before Kyle could respond, an urgent transmission from Earth cut through the tension. Admiral Blackwood's voice was tight, with barely controlled panic. "Kyle, the Zen fleet has accelerated its approach. They'll reach our solar system in less than 48 hours. We're running out of time." The weight of Earth's fate pressed down on Kyle as he considered his options. The risks were enormous, but the alternative was unthinkable. With a deep breath, he made his decision. "I'll do it," Kyle said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Prepare the interface." As the team worked to integrate the components they gathered with the station's systems, Korvax provided crucial insights into Zen physiology that might help mitigate the dangers. The Guardian AI guided them through the process, its ancient knowledge proving invaluable. Kyle positioned himself at the center of the newly assembled device, his heart pounding in his chest. As the team activated the system, he felt a surge of energy course through his body. His consciousness expanded, encompassing the vast network of precursor technology that stretched across the galaxy. The pain was immediate and intense, threatening to overwhelm him. Kyle gritted his teeth, fighting to maintain his connection to the device as information flooded his mind. Through the haze of agony, he could sense the approaching Zen fleet, their weapons primed for Earth's destruction. With time running out and his grip on reality slipping, Kyle reached out with his newfound power, preparing to activate the device that could save Earth from annihilation. The fate of humanity hung in the balance as he struggled to maintain control. The combined might of precursor technology and his own enhanced abilities poised to change the course of the war. Interstellar conflict. Kyle's consciousness expanded, encompassing the vast network of precursor technology. The pain intensified, threatening to overwhelm him as he initiated the device. Suddenly, Kyle's body convulsed. His eyes rolled back, and he let out a guttural scream that echoed through the station. The team rushed to his side, their faces etched with concern. "His neural patterns are destabilizing," one of the scientists shouted, frantically adjusting controls on a nearby console. Korvax pushed forward, his alien features set in commitment. "I may be able to help. Zen neurobiology shares similarities with humans. We can create a buffer to protect his mind." Working swiftly, the team implemented Korvax's suggestions, creating a makeshift neural buffer. Kyle's violent tremors subsided, but his pale skin and labored breathing indicated he was far from stable. As they fought to keep Kyle alive, an urgent transmission crackled through their comms. Admiral Blackwood's voice cut through the chaos, tight with barely controlled panic. "The Zen fleet has entered the solar system. We're engaging now, but we're outgunned. We need that weapon operational." On the main view screen, they watched as Earth's combined human and Daxamite fleet clashed with the Zen armada. Energy weapons flashed across the void of space, and explosions bloomed silently as ships from both sides were torn apart. Kyle's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. His voice, when he spoke, seemed to come from everywhere at once. "It's ready," Activating now. A massive wave of energy burst forth from the station, rippling across space at impossible speed. As it washed over the battling fleets, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Zen Theory's ships, once protected by impenetrable energy shields, suddenly found themselves vulnerable. Their weapon systems flickered and died, leaving them defenseless against the counterattack. But the wave's effects weren't limited to the invaders. Human and Daxamite ships also experienced system failures, though to a lesser extent. The battle shifted, becoming a more evenly matched conflict, relying on conventional weapons and tactics. Admiral Blackwood's voice came through again, this time filled with a mix of relief and confusion. Their weapons are down, but so are most of our advanced systems. What's happening out there? Kyle couldn't respond. His consciousness was stretched across the galaxy, connected to a vast network of dormant precursor satellites and stations. Through this network, he saw the true scope of the conflict and the hidden forces behind it. As he processed this flood of information, Kyle became aware of a new presence entering the solar system. A massive ship, dwarfing even the largest Zen Theory vessels, appeared at the system's edge. Unlike the other ships, it seemed unaffected by the weapon-neutralizing field. Kyle's enhanced senses recognized the ship immediately, and a chill ran through him. This was the threat the precursors had foreseen, the Void Harbingers. Back in the solar system, the battle raged on. With their advanced weaponry neutralized, the Zen Theory resorted to desperate tactics. Ships accelerated to ramming speed, sacrificing themselves in attempts to break through Earth's defenses. Admiral Blackwood coordinated a daring counteroffensive, using the disabled Zen Theory ships as cover. All ships, form up on Vector 117. We're going to punch through their line and take out their command vessels. On Europa, Mike Thompson and the Frost Whales face an unexpected crisis. The energy wave had reactivated dormant systems in the underwater outpost, causing violent seismic disturbances. We need to stabilize the core, Mike shouted over the rumbling of the moon's icy shell. If it ruptures, we'll lose the entire outpost and the Frost Whales with it. As multiple crises unfolded across the solar system, Kyle found himself at a crossroads. His body was failing, cells degrading under the strain of the precursor device. He could feel his grip on consciousness slipping. Kyle knew he had to make a choice. Maintain the weapon-neutralizing field and give Earth's forces a fighting chance against the Zen Theory, or disengage and warn humanity about the arrival of the Void Harbingers. The fate of Earth, the Daxamites, and countless other civilizations hung in the balance. Kyle's mind raced, processing billions of calculations per second as he weighed his options. In that moment, as Kyle grappled with his impossible choice, the Void Harbinger ship began to move. It accelerated towards the heart of the battle, its intentions unknown, but its presence undeniably game-changing. The conflict that had begun as a straightforward alien invasion had now evolved into something far more complex and dangerous. As Kyle prepared to make his decision, he knew that whatever he chose would alter the course of galactic history forever. Kyle's mind raced as he processed the impossible choice before him. The fate of Earth and countless civilizations hung in the balance. As he prepared to make his decision, a searing pain shot through his body. His cells were breaking down, unable to withstand the strain of the precursor device any longer. In that critical moment, Kyle made a bold strategy. He attempted to split his consciousness, maintaining a partial connection to the device while also trying to transmit a warning about the Void Harbingers. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Kyle's body convulsed violently, and alarms blared throughout the station. The weapon-neutralizing field began to fluctuate wildly, creating pockets of space where advanced weaponry intermittently functioned. In the solar system, chaos erupted. Earth and Zen Theory ships alike found their systems cycling on and off unpredictably. Plasma cannons fired at full power one moment, only to sputter and die the next. Shields flickered in and out of existence, leaving vessels vulnerable to attacks they had no way to anticipate. Admiral Blackwood's voice crackled over the comms, filled with confusion and urgency. "What's happening out there? Our systems are going haywire." Before anyone could respond, a new threat emerged. The massive Void Harbingers ship accelerated towards the heart of the battle, its hull seemingly unaffected by the fluctuating energy field. On the precursor station, Kyle's team rushed to stabilize him. His skin had taken on a sickly pallor, and his breathing came in ragged gasps. "We're losing him," one of the scientists shouted, frantically adjusting controls on a nearby console. Korvax pushed forward, his alien features set with persistence. "We need to create a bioneural interface to sustain his life functions. I can guide you through the process." As they worked to save Kyle's life, his fractured consciousness struggled to transmit a warning. In Earth's command center, Admiral Blackwood received a garbled message. "Void Harbingers. Ancient threat. Consume stars. Must unite." Blackwood's eyes widened as he pieced together the fragmented warning. He turned to his staff, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Deploy our final reserves, and get me a direct line to the Daxamite fleet. We're going to need everyone for this fight." In the Jupiter system, Europa trembled. The fluctuating energy field had reawakened dormant precursor systems within the moon's icy shell, threatening to tear it apart. Mike Thompson stood in the control room of the underwater outpost, surrounded by the haunting songs of panicked frost whales. "We need to channel the excess energy through the subsurface ocean," he shouted over the rumbling of the moon. "It's our only chance to save the outpost and the whales." Back on the precursor station, Kyle's split consciousness allowed him to access the vast repository of information stored within the ancient network. Images and data flooded his mind. The Void Harbingers, a silicon-based life form that consumed energy directly from stars and planets. The Precursor's desperate plan to seed the galaxy with life that might one day stand against this threat. The weapon-neutralizing technology, a last resort meant to buy time for their creations to evolve and unite. With this knowledge came a terrible clarity. Kyle knew what he had to do, even if it meant sacrificing himself. He poured the last of his strength into the precursor device, reactivating the entire network of ancient technology throughout the galaxy. A cascade of energy swept across the cosmos. On planets long thought dead, massive structures hummed to life. In the depths of space, hidden stations and satellites awakened from millennia of dormancy. The Void Harbinger ship shuddered as it was struck by multiple beams of energy from these newly awakened defenses. Its hull, once impervious, began to crack and splinter. But the cost was immense. On the precursor station, Kyle's life support systems failed catastrophically. His body went limp, and for a moment, it seemed as if all was lost. "No!" Korvax shouted, his hands flying over the alien controls. "We can still save him, but we need to sever the connection now." Working with desperate speed, the team managed to disconnect Kyle from the precursor device. His body, freed from the overwhelming input, slumped to the floor. He was alive, but barely, his mind lost in a coma that defied their attempts to reach him. As the immediate threat of the Void Harbinger subsided, attention turned back to the ongoing battle with the Zen theory. Both sides now found themselves with full access to their advanced weaponry. The playing field suddenly and dramatically leveled. Admiral Blackwood, armed with the fragmented warning from Kyle, made a bold decision. He opened a channel to the Zen theory fleet. "Attention, Zen theory forces. We face a threat greater than our conflict. I propose an immediate ceasefire and alliance against our common enemy. The choice is yours. Continue this war and face extinction, or join us and fight for the survival of all our peoples." As tense moments passed, responses began to trickle in. Some Zen theory commanders, influenced by the faction Korvax represented, signaled their willingness to negotiate. On the precursor station, Kyle's team prepared to transport his comatose body back to Earth. They knew that his unique connection to the precursor network might be humanity's best hope for understanding and combating the Void Harbinger threat. As they made their way to their ship, carrying Kyle's still form, the station systems flickered. For a moment, it seemed as if Kyle's consciousness stirred, reaching out through the vast network he had awakened. But then the moment passed, leaving them to wonder what secrets lay locked within his mind and what challenges awaited them in the battles to come. Come. The team carefully secured Kyle's unconscious form in the transport vessel, their movements measured and precise despite the urgency of the situation. As they departed the precursor station, Earth's combined fleet continued to engage the remnants of the Zen forces. The sudden reactivation of advanced weaponry had shifted the tide of battle once more, creating a chaotic dance of energy weapons and explosions across the void of space. Admiral Blackwood's voice crackled over the comms, addressing all ships in the vicinity. This is Admiral Blackwood to all forces. We receive critical intelligence about a greater threat to our collective survival. I'm calling for an immediate ceasefire and requesting that all commanders meet for an emergency summit. The response was mixed. Some Zen vessels immediately powered down their weapons, while others continued their assault with renewed vigor. The human and Daxamite ships adjusted their tactics, focusing on defensive maneuvers while trying to avoid further casualties on either side. As the battle raged on, Kyle's transport made its way towards Earth, escorted by a mixed squadron of human and Daxamite fighters. The medical team on board worked tirelessly to stabilize his condition, their faces etched with concern as they monitored his vital signs. Back on Earth, preparations were already underway. The secure medical facility in Geneva, Switzerland, buzzed with activity as teams of scientists and medical professionals from multiple species worked to retrofit the building with the latest in human, Daxamite, and salvage precursor technology. Dr. James Carter strode through the facility's corridors, barking orders and coordinating efforts. I want that Daxamite neural interface online within the hour. And someone get me an update on the precursor biostasis chamber. As Kyle's transport approached Earth's atmosphere, a shimmering distortion rippled across the planet's surface. The weapon-neutralizing field, still fluctuating wildly, was beginning to affect global systems. In cities across the world, power grids flickered and failed, plunging millions into darkness. The transport ship shuddered as it entered the turbulent atmosphere, its pilots fighting to maintain control. Geneva Control, this is Kyle Transport 1. We're experiencing some unusual interference. Request immediate landing clearance and medical team stand by. On the ground, Dr. Carter and his team rushed to the landing pad as the transport touched down. The ship's ramp lowered, revealing Kyle's pale, motionless form strapped to a gurney. Without a word, the team sprang into action, wheeling him into the facility with practiced efficiency. As they raced through the corridors, alarms blared and lights flickered. Dr. Carter glanced at the readouts on Kyle's biomonitor, his expression grim. We need to get him stabilized now. His neural patterns are degrading faster than we anticipated. In the main treatment room, a hodgepodge of human, Daxamite, and precursor technology hummed and pulsed. The team carefully transferred Kyle to the central platform, a web of sensors and energy fields immediately enveloping his body. Dr. Carter's fingers flew over the control panel, his brow furrowed in concentration. Initiating neural interface. Now. Kyle's body arched, a soft gasp escaping his lips. On the monitors, a cascade of data streamed across the screens, depicting the vast network of precursor technology that Kyle's consciousness was still connected to. My God, one of the human scientists whispered. He's interfaced with the entire system. How is this possible? Dr. Carter shook his head, his eyes never leaving the readouts. I don't know, but if we don't find a way to stabilize this connection, we're going to lose him, and possibly our best chance at understanding the precursor network. As the medical team in Geneva fought to save Kyle's life, events continued to unfold across the solar system. On the International Space Station, now heavily modified and expanded to accommodate the various alien delegations, Admiral Blackwood stood at the head of a long table. Around him sat representatives from Earth, the Daxamites, and those Zen who had agreed to the ceasefire. "We face an unprecedented threat," Blackwood began, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. "The Void Harbingers are unlike anything we've encountered before. Our only hope lies in working together." Captain Lorvan of the Daxamites nodded gravely. "We've analyzed the data from the precursor network. These entities consume the very energy of stars and planets. If they're not stopped, they could destroy all life in the galaxy." Korvax, the Zenthari defector, leaned forward, his alien features set in an expression of dedication. "Many of my people still refuse to accept this truth, but those of us here understand the gravity of our situation. We must put aside our past conflicts and focus on this common enemy." As the summit progressed, tensions remained high. Accusations of past atrocities and mistrust bubbled beneath the surface of every interaction. Yet, slowly but surely, the groundwork for an alliance began to take shape. Meanwhile, on Europa, Mike Thompson and his team of human scientists worked alongside the frost whales to map the newly awakened precursor energy conduits. The icy moon trembled periodically, sending shudders through the underwater outpost. Mike's voice echoed through the submerged communication system. "We need to find a way to stabilize these conduits. If we can harness their energy, we might be able to prevent Europa from tearing itself apart." The haunting songs of the frost whales filled the water around them, a mixture of fear and willpower evident in their otherworldly vocalizations. As Mike studied the holographic map of the energy network, a pattern began to emerge. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a pulsing node at the center of the display. "If we can redirect the energy flow through these secondary conduits, we might be able to create a self-sustaining loop." As the team worked feverishly to implement their plan, a group of frost whales approached Mike. Their leader, a massive creature with intricate patterns etched into its icy hide, communicated through a series of clicks and whistles. Mike's eyes widened as he interpreted the message. "You want to go to Earth? To help with the precursor data and Kyle's recovery?" The frost whale nodded, its enormous eye blinking slowly in affirmation. "All right," Mike said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "I'll contact Earth and make the arrangements. We'll call you, Echo." As Echo and its pod prepared for their unprecedented journey, the solar system continued to teeter on the brink of chaos. The damaged Void Harbinger ship orbiting Mars pulsed with an eerie energy, its hull slowly regenerating as it consumed the planet's resources. Earth's combined fleet maintained a watchful perimeter around the red planet, their weapons primed and ready. Yet even as they stood guard against this alien threat, the weapon-neutralizing field continued to wreak havoc on global systems. In cities around the world, panic began to spread as communications failed and power grids collapsed. Military forces struggled to maintain order, their efforts hampered by the unpredictable fluctuations in technology. As the crisis deepened, a joint task force of human, Daxamite, and cooperative Zenthari engineers gathered on the moon. Their mission: to stabilize the weapon-neutralizing field and prevent further damage to Earth's infrastructure. The hastily constructed lunar facility buzzed with activity as engineers from 3 species worked side by side, their differences set aside in the face of impending disaster. Holographic displays filled the air, depicting the complex web of energy fields surrounding Earth and the solar system. A human engineer pointed to a pulsing anomaly in the field. "If we can synchronize our efforts with the precursor defense platforms, we might be able to create a stable frequency that allows for controlled use of advanced technology." His Daxamite counterpart nodded, adding, We'll need to incorporate elements of the Void Harbingers' shielding technology. It's the only thing we've seen that can consistently withstand the field's effects. As the task force raced against time, the fate of the solar system hung in the balance. In Geneva, Kyle's life continued to flicker between this world and the vast precursor network. On the International Space Station, the future of an interspecies alliance was being forged in the crucible of crisis. And somewhere in the depths of space, more Void Harbingers stirred, their hunger driving them inexorably towards the next system ripe for consumption. The battle for survival had only just begun, and the challenges ahead would test the limits of cooperation, ingenuity, and the very nature of life itself. As the crisis deepened across the solar system, the Geneva Medical Facility became a crucible of hope and scientific breakthrough. Dr. James Carter and his team worked tirelessly, their fingers flying over control panels and adjusting complex machinery. The integration of the advanced life support system with Kyle's biology and the precursor technology was a delicate dance of science and intuition. Suddenly, a surge of energy pulsed through the facility's systems. Kyle's body jerked, his fingers twitching as his neural patterns spiked on the monitors. "We've got activity," Dr. Carter called out, his voice tight with excitement and tension. "Prepare for possible consciousness restoration." As if in response to his words, the facility's doors hissed open, revealing an unexpected sight. Echo, the massive frost whale, had somehow been transported from Europa and now floated in a specially designed tank, its enormous eye blinking slowly as it took in the scene. Mike Thompson, standing beside the tank, explained breathlessly, "We found a way to use the precursor transport technology." Echo insisted on coming to help. The frost whale's presence proved invaluable. As Echo began to emit a series of low-frequency vibrations, the monitors tracking Kyle's neural activity stabilized. The connection between Kyle's mind and the precursor network strengthened, becoming more coherent with each passing moment. Dr. Carter watched in awe as Kyle's eyelids began to flutter. "He's coming back to us," he whispered, hardly daring to believe it. Meanwhile, on the moon, the joint task force of human, Daxamite, and cooperative Zen engineers huddled around a central control hub. Holographic displays showed the chaotic energy patterns surrounding Earth, fluctuating wildly as the weapon-neutralizing field continued to wreak havoc. A human engineer, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the displays, pointed to a particular node in the network. "If we can synchronize the precursor technology with our energy regulators here, and here," she said, highlighting several points on the map, "we might be able to stabilize the field." Her Daxamite counterpart nodded, adding a series of complex calculations to the simulation. "Agreed. But we'll need to modulate the frequency to account for the Void Harbingers' shielding technology." As they worked, the energy patterns on the display began to shift, slowly at first, then with increasing stability. Across Earth, power grids flickered back to life, and communication systems crackled with renewed activity. In orbit around Mars, the situation took a dramatic turn. The damaged Void Harbinger ship, its hull now mostly regenerated, suddenly came to life. A beam of searing energy lanced out from the alien vessel, striking Mars' southern polar ice cap. The ice began to melt at an alarming rate, vaporizing into a cloud of steam and water vapor. Admiral Marcus Blackwood's voice cut through the chaos on the command channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Blackwood. The Void Harbinger is extracting resources from Mars. We cannot allow this to continue. Engage the enemy vessel immediately." Captain Lorvan's Daxamite cruiser took point, leading a mixed squadron of Earth and allied Zen ships towards the Void Harbinger. Energy weapons flared across the void of space, striking the alien vessel's shields in a dazzling display of destructive power. The battle over Mars intensified, with stray shots and debris raining down on the planet's surface. Huge gouges appeared in the red soil as the combatants maneuvered for position, their weapons tearing through the thin Martian atmosphere. Back on the International Space Station, the emergency summit reached a critical juncture. Reports of Zen theory splinter groups attacking Alliance positions flooded in, threatening to unravel the fragile coalition. Korvax, the Zen theory defector, stood up abruptly, his alien features set in a mask of perseverance. "I will go to my homeworld," he announced. "I will make our central government see reason. We cannot afford to fight amongst ourselves, while the Void Harbingers threaten all life in the galaxy." As Korvax prepared for his diplomatic mission, events on Europa took an unexpected turn. Mike Thompson's team, working in concert with the remaining Frost Whales, had been mapping the network of precursor energy conduits beneath the moon's icy surface. As they activated a series of controlled pulses, the entire network suddenly lit up, forming a coherent pattern. "It's like a giant circuit board," Mike muttered, his eyes wide with wonder. The activation had an astonishing effect. A massive holographic projection materialized above Europa, displaying a three-dimensional map of the Milky Way galaxy. Key locations pulsed with light: Earth, the Zen theory homeworld, and a series of previously unknown precursor outposts scattered throughout the stars. As news of this discovery spread, the Geneva Medical Facility erupted into a flurry of activity. Kyle Phillips, now conscious but weak, struggled to sit up, his eyes fixed on a data pad displaying the galactic map. I can see it," he said, his voice hoarse from disuse. "The precursors. They left us a weapon, a superweapon capable of repelling the Void Harbingers." Dr. Carter leaned in, his face a mixture of concern and excitement. "Where, Kyle? Where is this weapon?" Kyle's finger trembled as he pointed to a distant star system on the map. "There, but it won't be easy to reach. The Void Harbingers. They're coming. More of them." As if to confirm Kyle's words, long-range sensors throughout the solar system began to light up with warnings. A second Void Harbinger ship, larger than the first and seemingly unaffected by the weapon-neutralizing field, was approaching rapidly. In the command center of Earth's combined fleet, Admiral Blackwood stood surrounded by holographic displays showing the unfolding crisis. The battle over Mars continued to rage. Resources were stretched to the breaking point, and now a new threat loomed on the horizon. "We need to make a decision," Blackwood said, his voice grave. "Do we fortify our defenses here, or do we risk everything on an expedition to secure this precursor superweapon?" As the Admiral contemplated the choices before him, the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy hung in the balance. The Void Harbingers were coming, and time was running out. Admiral Blackwood's eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic displays, his mind racing through potential strategies. The arrival of the second Void Harbinger ship had changed everything, and time was of the essence. "Patch me through to all command channels," he ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. As the communication lines opened, Blackwood addressed the assembled leaders of Earth and its allies. "We face an unprecedented threat," he began, his words echoing across the solar system. "But we also have an unprecedented opportunity. Our course of action is clear. We must pursue a two-pronged strategy." The Admiral outlined the plan, detailing the deployment of defensive forces within the solar system and the expedition to secure the precursor superweapon. As he spoke, the command center erupted into a flurry of activity, officers and analysts working to implement the strategy. Captain Lorvan stepped forward, his Daxamite features set with commitment. "I volunteer to lead the expedition team, Admiral," he said, his voice firm. Blackwood nodded, grateful for the captain's initiative. "Assemble your team, Lorvan. You'll need the best we have." Within hours, a specialized team had been assembled aboard the HSS Horizon. Kyle Phillips, still weak but determined, was escorted onto the ship by Dr. James Carter. A select group of human, Daxamite, and allied Zen theory experts followed, each bringing unique skills and knowledge to the mission. As the expedition team made final preparations, a commotion near the loading bay drew their attention. Echo, the frost whale, had somehow been transported to the launch site, its massive form suspended in a specially designed tank. Mike Thompson, standing beside the tank, explained the situation to a bewildered Captain Lorvan. Echo insisted on joining the mission, he said. The frost whale's ability to interface with precursor technology could be invaluable. Lorvan, quickly grasping the potential benefits, nodded his assent. "Get that tank secured in the cargo hold," he ordered. "We leave in 30 minutes." As the HSS Horizon prepared for departure, Mike Thompson returned to his team on Europa. The activation of the precursor energy conduits had revealed new possibilities, and Mike was determined to harness them. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a holographic display of Europa's interior. "These conduits are forming a massive energy accumulator. If we can integrate this with the weapon-neutralizing field regulators, we might be able to create a solar system-wide defensive network." His team set to work immediately, their efforts driven by the urgency of the situation. As they labored, reports from Earth indicated a global mobilization unlike anything in human history. Military and scientific installations worldwide began retrofitting their facilities with reverse-engineered precursor and Zen theory technology, leading to rapid advancements in energy production, materials science, and propulsion systems. The HSS Horizon lifted off from Earth, its experimental faster-than-light drive humming with power. As the ship accelerated away from the solar system, the battle over Mars reached a critical juncture. Admiral Blackwood, coordinating the defense from his command ship, saw an opportunity as the damaged Void Harbinger vessel began to disengage from Mars orbit. "All ships, this is Admiral Blackwood," he broadcast. "Converge on the target. Hit it with everything we've got." The combined fleet unleashed a barrage of conventional and modified precursor weapons. Energy beams and projectiles streaked across space, overwhelming the Void Harbinger's weakened defenses. The alien ship's propulsion system sputtered and died, leaving it trapped in Mars orbit. As the defensive forces in the solar system pressed their advantage, the HSS Horizon encountered its first challenges in deep space. The experimental drive caused intermittent failures, forcing the crew to make emergency stops for repairs. During one such stop, Kyle Phillips felt a familiar tingling in his mind. "Captain," he called out, his voice urgent, "there's something here, a precursor outpost." The HSS Horizon approached a small, rocky planet hidden in the shadow of a gas giant. On its surface stood the unmistakable geometric shapes of precursor architecture, long abandoned but still intact. As an away team prepared to investigate the outpost, the second Void Harbinger ship entered the outer reaches of the solar system. Admiral Blackwood watched as the expanded weapon-neutralizing field engaged the massive vessel, its effects visible even at this great distance. The Void Harbinger's advanced weapons sputtered and failed, but the ship itself continued its inexorable approach, using its enormous mass as a battering ram against the defensive lines. Blackwood's voice crackled over the command channel. "All ships, brace for impact. Use maneuvering thrusters to deflect the Harbinger's trajectory. We need to buy more time." As the battle in the solar system intensified, the HSS Horizon's away team explored the abandoned precursor outpost. Kyle, his connection to the precursor network stronger than ever, interfaced with the ancient systems. "This is incredible," he muttered, his eyes unfocused as he processed a flood of information. "There's data here about the superweapon, but also warnings, dangers we haven't even considered." Captain Lorvan placed a hand on Kyle's shoulder, steadying him. "What kind of dangers?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. Before Kyle could respond, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Dr. Carter burst into the room, his face pale. "Captain, we've got a problem," he said. "Long-range sensors are picking up multiple Void Harbinger signatures. They're converging on our location." The away team rushed back to the HSS Horizon, the newly acquired precursor data secure, but its full implications still unknown. As the ship prepared for emergency faster-than-light jump, the crew could only hope that the information they'd gathered would be enough to turn the tide of the coming battle. With the Void Harbingers closing in from multiple directions and the solar system's defenses straining under the assault, the race to secure the precursor superweapon had become more crucial than ever. The HSS Horizon leapt into faster-than-light travel, carrying with it the hopes of Earth and its allies, while behind them, the galaxy trembled on the brink of all-out war. The HSS Horizon leapt into faster-than-light travel, carrying with it the hopes of Earth and its allies. As the ship hurtled to the fabric of space-time, the experimental drive strained against the laws of physics, pushing the vessel to its limits. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship as the drive faltered. Captain Lorvan gripped the arms of his command chair, his face a mask of concentration. "Status report," he barked. The ship's engineer, a human named Sarah Chun, frantically worked at her console. "The drive's destabilizing, Captain. We're about to drop out of FTL." With a violent lurch, the HSS Horizon tore back into normal space. The crew was thrown against their restraints as the ship tumbled end over end, its systems failing in cascading sequence. "All power to stabilizers," Lorvan ordered, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Find us a place to set down now." Kyle Phillips, still weak but alert, closed his eyes and reached out with his precursor-enhanced senses. "There," he said, pointing to a holographic display of the system they'd emerged in. "That planet. It's habitable." As the ship plummeted towards a lush, green world, Dr. Carter worked feverishly to secure Echo's containment tank. The frost whale's massive form shifted restlessly, sensing the danger they were in. "Brace for impact." Lorvan's voice rang out over the ship-wide comm. The HSS Horizon screamed through the planet's atmosphere, leaving a trail of burning debris in its wake. With a deafening crash, it plowed into a dense forest, carving a kilometers-long furrow before finally coming to rest. For long moments, silence reigned. Then, slowly, the crew began to stir. Captain Lorvan pulled himself from his chair, wincing at the pain in his ribs. "Sound off," he called out. "Who's hurt?" As the team assessed their injuries and the damage to the ship, Kyle approached the captain. "Sir," he said, his voice low and urgent, "I sensed something when we entered the system. There's a precursor energy signature coming from a mountain range to the north. It has to be the superweapon." Lorvan nodded, his mind racing. "We can't afford to wait. Dr. Carter," he called out, "what's the status of our ship?" The doctor emerged from the cargo hold, his face grim. "It's bad, Captain. We're looking at days, maybe weeks of repairs before we can even think about taking off again." Lorvan made a quick decision. "We'll split into 2 teams. I'll lead an expedition to the energy source with Kyle and Echo. Dr. Carter, you'll stay here with the rest of the crew. Get the Horizon space-worthy again, and establish a secure base camp." As the teams prepared for their respective missions, the lush alien world revealed its dangers. Strange, bird-like creatures with razor-sharp beaks circled overhead, their cries echoing through the forest. In the underbrush, something large and predatory moved, just out of sight. Lorvan's team set out at dawn, carrying what supplies they could manage. Echo, suspended in a makeshift hover tank, floated behind them, its massive eye taking in the alien landscape. The terrain quickly became treacherous. Vines as thick as a man's arm crisscrossed their path, and the ground was unstable, given to sudden sinkholes. Kyle's enhanced abilities proved invaluable, allowing him to sense danger before it struck. "Captain," he called out, his voice tense, "there's something stalking us. It's big, and it's not alone." As if on cue, a massive creature burst from the undergrowth. It resembled a cross between a tiger and a praying mantis, its 6 legs ending in wickedly curved claws. With a bone-chilling screech, it leapt at the team. Lorvan reacted instantly, his Daxamite reflexes allowing him to tackle Kyle out of harm's way. The creature's claws scraped against Echo's containment field, sending sparks flying. The frost whale responded with a pulse of bioelectric energy that sent the predator reeling. "Keep moving," Lorvan shouted, firing his energy weapon to keep the beast at bay. "There are more coming." The team pushed on, fighting through the hostile jungle. Kyle's connection to the precursor network grew stronger as they approached the mountain range, guiding them through the safest paths. Back at the crash site, Dr. Carter's team worked tirelessly to repair the HSS Horizon. They salvaged what they could from the surrounding forest, using alien materials to patch holes in the hull. But as they labored, dark storm clouds began to gather on the horizon. "We need to secure everything," Dr. Carter ordered, eyeing the approaching tempest. "This storm could undo all our work if we're not careful." As the first massive raindrops began to fall, the repair team scrambled to protect their progress. Lightning split the sky, and winds howled through the trees, threatening to tear apart their makeshift shelters. Meanwhile, in the solar system, Admiral Blackwood's forces fought a desperate battle against the second Void Harbinger ship. The weapon-neutralizing field had robbed the alien vessel of its advanced weaponry, but its sheer mass made it a formidable threat. "All ships, execute Maneuver Delta 7, Blackwood commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "We need to deflect its trajectory away from Mars." The combined fleet moved in concert, using their maneuvering thrusters to create a wall of force. The Void Harbinger ship's momentum slowed, but it continued to push forward, its hull grinding against the smaller vessels. On Europa, Mike Thompson watched the battle unfold via long-range sensors. "We're almost there," he muttered, making final adjustments to the precursor energy conduits. "Just a little more power." Suddenly, the network of conduits beneath Europa's icy surface pulsed with blinding light. A wave of energy surged outward, washing over the solar system. For a brief moment, the Void Harbinger ship systems flickered and died. "Now!" Blackwood shouted. "All ships, concentrate fire on its propulsion systems." As the battle raged in space, Lorvan's team finally reached the base of the mountain range. Before them stood an immense structure, its geometric lines unmistakably precursor in origin. Vegetation had long since overtaken much of the facility, but its power was undimmed. Kyle approached the control panel hidden beneath a tangle of vines. As he placed his hand on its surface, the entire mountainside seemed to come alive. Hidden doors slid open, revealing a vast complex within. "This is it," Kyle breathed, his eyes wide with wonder and apprehension. "The superweapon is in there, but so are its guardians." As if in response to his words, mechanical sentries emerged from concealed chambers, their ancient weapons powering up. Lorvan raised his own weapon, Echo pulsed with bioelectric energy, and Kyle's hands began to glow with precursor power. The team stepped into the facility, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their ability to claim the precursor superweapon and return it to the solar system before it was too late. The team stepped into the facility, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their ability to claim the precursor superweapon and return it to the solar system before it was too late. As they ventured deeper into the complex, the ancient machinery hummed to life, responding to Kyle's presence. The mechanical sentries, their weapons glowing with terrifying energy, moved to intercept the intruders. Lorvan raised his hand, signaling the team to halt. "Kyle, can you interface with the system? See if you can shut down these guardians." Kyle nodded, his eyes unfocused as he reached out with his mind. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he grappled with the ancient security protocols. It's resisting, he grunted. But I think I can. Suddenly, the sentries froze in place, their weapons powering down. Kyle exhaled sharply, his shoulders sagging with relief. Got it. We should be clear to proceed. As they moved further into the facility, Echo's massive form barely fitting through the corridors, they came upon a vast chamber. At its center stood a towering structure, its surface covered in pulsing lines of energy. This is it, Kyle breathed. The superweapon. Lorvan approached a nearby console, studying its alien interface. Can you activate it, Kyle? Kyle placed his hands on the console, his eyes closing in concentration. The chamber filled with a low hum as the superweapon began to power up. Suddenly, Kyle's eyes snapped open. There's a problem. The power requirements are enormous. We don't have nearly enough energy to fully activate it. Echo's voice reverberated in their minds. I may be able to assist. My bioelectric abilities could provide a significant power boost. Lorvan considered the Frost Whale's offer. It's risky, but we don't have much choice. Kyle, work with Echo to channel the energy. I'll monitor the systems and make sure nothing overloads. As Kyle and Echo began the delicate process of energizing the superweapon, alarms blared throughout the facility. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and dust rained down from the ceiling. What's happening? Lorvan shouted over the din. Kyle's fingers flew over the console. The power surge is destabilizing the entire structure. We need to hurry. Meanwhile, back at the crash site, Dr. Carter and his team worked frantically to repair the HSS Horizon. The storm that had been brewing on the horizon now raged around them, lashing the damaged ship with wind and rain. We need to initiate an emergency launch, Dr. Carter yelled, fighting to be heard over the howling wind. If we stay here, we'll be torn apart. The crew scrambled to their stations, strapping themselves in as Dr. Carter took the helm. With a prayer on his lips, he engaged the engines. The HSS Horizon shuddered and groaned as it lifted off, debris falling away from its hastily repaired hull. The ship lurched sickeningly as it fought against the storm's fury, alarms blaring as systems failed one after another. In the cockpit, Dr. Carter gritted his teeth, his knuckles tightening on the controls. Come on, girl, he muttered. Just a little more. With a final, desperate surge of power, the HSS Horizon broke free of the planet's atmosphere, achieving a tenuous orbit. Dr. Carter slumped in his seat, exhausted but relieved. Status report, he called out. Sarah Chen's voice crackled over the comm, heavy with concern. We sustained heavy damage, Doctor. Hull integrity is compromised in multiple sections, and life support is operating at minimal capacity. We need to retrieve the captain's team and get out of here fast. Back in the precursor facility, Kyle and Echo's combined efforts had finally brought the superweapon to life. The massive structure thrummed with power, its true nature revealing itself. It's a teleportation array, Kyle said, his voice filled with awe. It can move entire fleets across vast distances. Lorvan's mind raced with the implications. Can we use it to get back to Earth? Kyle shook his head. We don't have nearly enough power for that. But, he paused, considering, we might be able to transport ourselves and the Horizon back to the solar system. It'll drain the weapon completely, though. Lorvan made his decision quickly. Do it. We can't risk staying here any longer. As Kyle began the teleportation sequence, Lorvan's comm crackled to life. Dr. Carter's voice came through, strained and urgent. Captain, we've achieved orbit, but the ship is in bad shape. We need to leave this system immediately. Understood, Doctor. Bring the ship down to our coordinates. We're about to attempt a long-range teleport. The HSS Horizon descended through the planet's atmosphere once more, fighting against the storm as it approached the precursor facility. As the ship touched down outside the complex, a new threat emerged. From the surrounding forest, a horde of alien creatures burst forth. They move with terrifying speed and agility, their bodies a nightmarish fusion of insectoid and reptilian features. "Defensive positions," Lorvan shouted, raising his weapon. The team formed a protective circle around Kyle and Echo as they continued to power the teleportation array. The air filled with the sound of energy weapons and the screeching of the alien attackers. Lorvan and his team fought desperately, trying to buy time for the others to board the ship. "Kyle, Echo, go," Lorvan ordered. "Get to the ship. We'll hold them off." As the last of the crew made it aboard, Lorvan and Kyle found themselves cut off on the horizon by a wall of snarling aliens. Echo's massive form appeared in the ship's cargo bay, its eye glowing with bioelectric energy. With a thunderous pulse, Echo created a shimmering barrier between the two men and their attackers. Lorvan and Kyle sprinted for the ship, diving through the barrier just as it began to fade. The HSS Horizon's engines roared to life as the last of the team made it aboard. The ship rose unsteadily, its damaged systems straining under the effort. "Now, Kyle," Lorvan shouted. Kyle's hands flew over the console, activating the teleportation sequence. The air around the ship began to shimmer and distort. In a blinding flash of light, the HSS Horizon vanished from the alien world, hurtling through space towards Earth. The crew held their breath, feeling the ship shake and groan around them as it traversed a vast distance in mere moments. Suddenly, they were there. The HSS Horizon materialized in Earth's orbit, its systems failing catastrophically from the strain of the teleport. Through the view screen, they saw a scene of utter chaos. The Void Harbingers ship loomed over Earth, its massive form casting a shadow over the battered human and allied fleet. The weapon-neutralizing field flickered erratically, providing only intermittent protection. Lorvan staggered to the communications console, opening a channel to Admiral Blackwood's flagship. "Admiral, this is Captain Lorvan of the HSS Horizon. We've returned with critical information about the precursor superweapon." As Blackwood's voice crackled over the comm, acknowledging their return, Lorvan turned to his exhausted crew. Despite their successful return, he knew that the real battle was just beginning. With the HSS Horizon barely holding together and the superweapon left behind, they faced the daunting task of turning this new knowledge into a strategy that could save Earth and its allies. The Void Harbingers ship moved ever closer, its presence a constant reminder of the imminent threat. As Lorvan began relaying their findings to Blackwood, he couldn't help but wonder if they had returned in time to make a difference, or if they were merely witnesses to humanity's last stand. Lorvan's words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their uncertain future. But there was no time for doubt. The crew of the HSS Horizon sprang into action, their training kicking in despite their exhaustion. "Admiral," Lorvan said, his voice firm, "we've discovered that the precursor superweapon is actually a teleportation array. We believe we can adapt this technology to give us an edge against the Void Harbinger." Admiral Blackwood's holographic image flickered, his brow furrowed in concentration. "A teleportation array? That could change everything. We need to set up a strategy session immediately." As Lorvan and Blackwood began discussing potential tactics, Kyle Phillips approached the captain. "Sir, I think I can help reverse engineer the teleportation principles. If we can salvage some components from our damaged systems, we might be able to construct a prototype." Lorvan nodded. "Do it. Set up a lab here on the horizon. Pull in any personnel you need." Kyle wasted no time, gathering a team of scientists and engineers. They converted one of the ship's cargo bays into a makeshift laboratory, cannibalizing non-essential systems for parts. As they worked, a transmission came through from Europa. Mike Thompson's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Captain, I've been monitoring your situation. I have a proposal. We could use Europa's energy accumulator to power your prototype. It might allow for short-range teleportation within the solar system. Lorvan's eyes widened at the implications. That could allow us to bypass the Void Harbingers' defenses entirely. Excellent work, Mike. Coordinate with Kyle's team to make it happen. While the scientific minds tackled the teleportation problem, Admiral Blackwood was assembling a specialized task force. Human special forces, Daxamite warriors, and allied Zenthari operatives gathered on a nearby space station, preparing for a mission like no other. Commander Sarah Chun, recently transferred from the Horizon, led the task force through zero-gravity combat drills. "Remember," she shouted as the diverse group maneuvered through a simulated alien corridor, "we'll be fighting in an environment we've never encountered before. Stay alert, stay flexible, and most importantly, stay alive." On the lunar surface, the battle for control of the weapon-neutralizing field regulators raged on. Korvax, his armor scarred and his energy rifle glowing hot, led a mixed team of humans and Zenthari against the hardliner forces. "Push forward," he roared, his voice carrying over the sounds of energy weapons and explosions. "We must secure the primary regulator facility." His team advanced, using the lunar craters for cover. They managed to establish a perimeter around the facility, but the fighting showed no signs of abating. The lunar landscape was scarred with trenches and impact craters, a testament to the ferocity of the ongoing conflict. Back on the HSS Horizon, Dr. James Carter and his engineering team worked tirelessly to bring the ship back to fighting form. They moved through the corridors with purpose, their tools flashing as they repaired ruptured conduits and bypassed damaged systems. "We need to get the starboard thrusters operational," Carter said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Without them, we're sitting ducks if the Void Harbinger decides to target us directly." As if in response to his words, the massive alien ship launched a new offensive. High-energy particle beams lanced out from its hull, striking Earth's major population centers with devastating precision. Alarms blared throughout the HSS Horizon. Lorvan rushed to the bridge, his face grim as he watched the destruction unfold on the main view screen. "Status report," he barked. "The combined fleet is attempting to intercept the attack, sir," a young officer responded, her fingers flying over her console. "But the fluctuating weapon-neutralizing field is hampering their efforts." Lorvan's heart made. "Contact Kyle. Tell him we need that teleportation device operational yesterday." In the makeshift lab, Kyle and his team redoubled their efforts. They conducted a series of increasingly risky experiments, fine-tuning the technology for combat applications. During one test, a volunteer stepped onto the teleportation platform. The air crackled with energy as the device activated. For a moment, it seemed to work perfectly. Then the volunteer's form began to waver, his features distorting in agony. "Shut it down!" Kyle shouted. The volunteer collapsed as the device powered off, his cells visibly degraded. The team stood in shocked silence until Echo's telepathic voice resonated in their minds. "I may have a solution. My bioelectric abilities could create a protective field around the teleportation subjects, reducing the risk of cellular damage." Kyle's eyes lit up. "Echo, that's brilliant. Let's run some simulations immediately." As they worked to incorporate Echo's bioelectric field into the teleportation process, Admiral Blackwood's voice came over the ship's comm system. "Captain Lorvan, the Void Harbinger's assault is intensifying. Earth's defenses are strained to the breaking point. How soon can your team be ready?" Lorvan looked at Kyle, who nodded grimly. "We're as ready as we'll ever be, Admiral. Give us the go-ahead, and we'll launch the assault." "You have it, Captain. Godspeed." The prototype teleportation device was quickly installed on a specially modified shuttle. The elite task force boarded, their faces set with perseverance. Kyle joined them, Knowing his precursor-enhanced abilities would be crucial for navigating the alien vessel systems. Echo, despite the risks of operating outside an aquatic environment, insisted on accompanying the group. My presence is necessary to ensure safe teleportation, the frost whale communicated telepathically. I will endure any discomfort. As the shuttle detached from the HSS horizon and began its approach towards the Void Harbingers ship, tension filled the air. The task force checked and rechecked their equipment, mentally preparing for the unknown challenges that awaited them. Captain Lorvan addressed his team one last time. We're about to attempt something unprecedented. The fate of Earth and all our allies rests on the success of this mission. Trust your training, trust each other, and may fortune favor the bold. The shuttle drew closer to the massive alien vessel, its form looming ominously before them. Kyle activated the prototype device, his hands steady despite the weight of responsibility. Echo's form began to glow, enveloping the task force in a shimmering bioelectric field. The air inside the shuttle seemed to vibrate with potential energy. Teleportation sequence initiating, Kyle announced, his voice taut with concentration. The world around them began to blur and shift. For a heart-stopping moment, the task force felt as if they were being pulled apart at the molecular level. Then, with a disorienting lurch, they rematerialized. They found themselves standing in a cavernous chamber within the Void Harbinger ship. Alien technology pulsed and throbbed around them, filling the air with an otherworldly hum. Captain Lorvan quickly assessed their surroundings, his military training kicking in. "Form up," he ordered quietly. "Kyle, see if you can interface with their systems. Everyone else, prepare for contact. Our mission starts now." As the task force moved into position, the enormity of their situation became clear. They were deep within the heart of humanity's greatest threat, surrounded by unknown dangers. The battle for Earth's survival had entered its most critical phase. As the task force moved deeper into the Void Harbinger ship, Kyle Phillips approached a pulsating central control node. His fingers hovered over the alien interface, his precursor-enhanced mind reaching out to make contact. "I'm going to attempt to interface with their systems," Kyle announced, his voice taut with concentration. The moment his hand touched the smooth, crystalline surface, a surge of information flooded his consciousness. Kyle's eyes widened, his body rigid as he processed the influx of data. "Kyle," Lorvan called out, concern evident in his voice. "What do you see?" After several tense moments, Kyle's posture relaxed, and he turned to face the team. His expression was a mix of awe and disbelief. "Captain, you're not going to believe this. The Void Harbingers, they're not invaders. They're refugees." A collective murmur of surprise rippled through the task force. Lorvan stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Explain." Kyle's words tumbled out in a rush. "They're fleeing a massive cosmic catastrophe in their home galaxy. Their actions, their harvesting of energy and resources, it's all driven by desperation. They're trying to survive." The revelation hit the team like a physical force. The entire mission objective shifted in an instant. Lorvan's mind raced, reassessing their strategy. "New plan," he announced, his voice firm. "We're no longer here to destroy. Our priority now is to disable their weapons and establish communication. Kyle, can you create a translation matrix?" Kyle nodded, his hands already moving across the alien controls. "I'll use my precursor abilities and the ship's databanks. It won't be perfect, but it should allow basic communication." As Kyle worked, the rest of the team took up defensive positions. The ship's corridors hummed with an eerie energy, the very walls seeming to pulse with life. Suddenly, a cacophony of mechanical whirs and clicks filled the air. A wave of robotic guardians rounded the corner, their metallic forms gleaming under the ship's bioluminescent lighting. "Contact!" shouted Commander Chin, her rifle already raised. The task force sprung into action, their specialized weapons cutting through the air. Plasma bolts and energy beams crisscrossed the corridor as they engaged the automated defenses. Lorvan ducked behind a protruding structure, narrowly avoiding a sizzling energy blast. "Kyle, how much longer?" "Almost there," Kyle called back, his fingers flying over the alien interface. "Just need to stabilize the matrix." A deafening explosion rocked the ship. Through the comm link, Admiral Blackwood's voice crackled to life. "Lorvan, status report." "We've made a critical discovery, Admiral," Lorvan replied, firing off a volley at the advancing robots. "The Void Harbingers are refugees. We're attempting to establish communication." There was a moment of stunned silence before Blackwood responded. "Understood. I'm redirecting our efforts to disable rather than destroy. But we have another situation developing. The Zen civil war has escalated. Their pro-alliance faction is requesting immediate assistance." Lorvan processed this new information quickly. "Acknowledged, Admiral. We'll proceed with our current objective here." As the battle raged on, Echo's massive form began to flicker and waver. The Frost Whale's telepathic voice sounded strained in their minds. "The alien environment. It's affecting my ability to maintain the bioelectric field." Kyle's head snapped up from his work. "Echo, hang on. I think I can help." His eyes unfocused slightly as he tapped into the precursor network, searching for a solution. In a flash of inspiration, he began rerouting the ship's internal energy conduits. "Captain," Kyle called out, "I've got a workaround for Echo's field, and the translation matrix is online. We need to push to the command center." Lorvan nodded grimly. "You heard him, team. Push forward." The task force fought their way through waves of robotic defenders, their progress marked by scorch marks and sparking mechanical debris. Despite their advanced weaponry and training, they took casualties. Medics worked frantically to stabilize the wounded as the team pressed on. Finally, they breached the command center. Kyle rushed to the central console, his hands hovering over the alien controls. "I'm establishing a neural link with the ship's primary consciousness," he announced, his voice strained. As Kyle's mind connected with the Void Harbinger collective, his body went rigid. His eyes rolled back, and a series of incomprehensible sounds escaped his lips. "Kyle!" Lorvan moved to pull him back, but Echo's voice resonated in their minds. "Wait," the Frost Whale cautioned. "He is navigating their collective consciousness. We must allow him to complete the connection." Tense minutes passed as Kyle's mind grappled with the alien intelligence. Finally, his eyes refocused and he gasped for air. I've made contact," he panted. "They're willing to negotiate." Lorvan immediately opened a channel to Admiral Blackwood. "Admiral, we've established communication with the Void Harbingers. Request immediate ceasefire and initiation of diplomatic protocols." As the orders to stand down rippled through the fleet, the task force found themselves at a crossroads. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the challenges ahead were no less daunting. The fate of multiple species now hung in the balance, with the potential for either unprecedented cooperation or catastrophic conflict. Kyle looked at Lorvan, his expression a mix of exhaustion and hope. "What now, Captain?" Lorvan's gaze swept over his battered but determined team. "Now," he said, his voice steady, "we start the real work of building understanding between our peoples. The true test of our humanity begins here." Lorvan's words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of responsibility. The task force exchanged determined glances, their mission shifting from combat to diplomacy in a heartbeat. Kyle, still connected to the Void Harbinger systems, began transmitting a message of peace. The ship's internal defenses powered down, and an eerie calm settled over the command center. Suddenly, the main view screen flickered to life, revealing a swirling mass of silicon-based entities. Their form was constantly shifting, a mesmerizing dance of crystalline structures. "There, acknowledging our message," Kyle said, his voice strained from the mental effort of translation. "They're expressing relief and curiosity." Before Lord Van could respond, Admiral Blackwood's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, we're detecting a massive energy surge from the Void Harbinger fleet. But it's different, non-aggressive." The task force watched in awe as the Void Harbinger ships began to power down their weapon systems. The immediate threat had passed, but the real work was just beginning. In the days that followed, Earth's leaders scrambled to organize an emergency summit. The International Space Station, hastily expanded with modular units, became a symbol of interstellar cooperation. Kyle, still recovering from his Neuralink experience, found himself thrust into the role of key advisor and translator. As he entered the main conference room, he was struck by the diversity of the attendees. Humans in crisp uniforms sat alongside Daxamite delegates in their flowing robes. Zen theory representatives, their scaled skin shimmering under the artificial lights, conversed quietly with each other. At the center of the room, a specially designed containment vessel housed a small group of Void Harbinger entities. Their crystalline forms pulsed with an otherworldly energy, drawing curious glances from the other delegates. Dr. James Carter stepped forward, clearing his throat nervously. "Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegates," he began, gesturing towards the containment vessel. "What you see before you is a result of weeks of intense research and collaboration." He pressed a button, and a holographic display sprang to life, showing detailed schematics of the containment technology. "We've successfully created a stable environment that can sustain Void Harbinger entities indefinitely. This breakthrough opens up possibilities for shared habitats and peaceful coexistence." A murmur of excitement rippled through the room. Kyle watched as the delegate's body language shifted from tense wariness to cautious optimism. As the summit progressed, Kyle found himself constantly translating between the various species. The Void Harbinger's method of communication was particularly challenging, a complex interplay of electromagnetic pulses and crystalline resonances. "They're saying," Kyle explained to the rapt audience, "that they've observed our relief efforts on Earth. They're impressed by our capacity for compassion, even in the face of destruction they caused." Admiral Blackwood, who had been coordinating the massive humanitarian operation, nodded solemnly. "We've mobilized every available ship to deliver supplies and medical aid. It's been a monumental effort, but we're making progress." The Void Harbinger representative pulsed rapidly, and Kyle translated again. "They're offering to assist in the reconstruction efforts. They have technology that could greatly accelerate the process." As the summit entered its final day, a consensus began to emerge. Earth and its allies would work together to establish a joint research facility on Mars, focusing on refining the containment technology and exploring peaceful applications of Void Harbinger abilities. Meanwhile, reports came in from Europa, where Mike Thompson and his team had achieved a breakthrough of their own. They had successfully adapted the Moon's precursor energy accumulator to safely power the Void Harbinger ships. "This is a game changer," Mike's holographic image explained to the summit. "We can meet their energy needs without compromising our own security. It's a win-win situation." As the delegates began drafting the final agreement, Kyle received an urgent message from Captain Lorvan. The captain and his mixed team of engineers had made a startling discovery while repairing the lunar weapon neutralizing field regulators. "We've found evidence of advanced precursor technology integrated into the Moon's core," Lorvan reported, his voice filled with awe. "It appears that Earth's satellite may not be entirely natural. The implications are staggering." This revelation sent shockwaves through the summit. Discussions about humanity's true origins and place in the galaxy added a new dimension to the negotiations. As the final day of the summit drew to a close, Kyle found himself standing before the assembled delegates. He took a deep breath, drawing on his connection to the precursor network. "We have an opportunity," he began, his voice steady despite his nervousness. "An opportunity to not just solve the immediate crisis, but to lay the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation." Kyle outlined his ambitious plan to reactivate dormant precursor facilities throughout the galaxy, creating a network of energy generation and distribution points. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This plan, Kyle continued, could provide a long-term solution for the Void Harbingers' energy needs. But more than that, it could usher in an age of unprecedented interstellar collaboration. As the summit concluded with the signing of the historic accord, preparations for the expedition fleet began in earnest. The HSS Horizon, newly repaired and upgraded, was designated as the flagship for this bold mission. Kyle watched from the observation deck as supplies and equipment were loaded onto the ships. The fleet was a testament to the new alliance. Human vessels flew alongside Daxamite cruisers and Zen scouts. Even a contingent of Void Harbinger entities, housed in their specialized habitats, was being carefully transferred aboard. As the final preparations were made, Kyle couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. They were about to embark on a journey that would take them further into the galaxy than any human had ever gone before. The challenges ahead were unknown, but the potential for discovery and cooperation was limitless. The expedition fleet hung in Earth's orbit, a shining beacon of hope and unity. As the countdown to departure began, Kyle took one last look at the blue marble of his home planet. Whatever lay ahead, he knew that this moment marked the beginning of a new chapter in human history. As Kyle's gaze lingered on Earth, a sudden commotion erupted on the bridge of the HSS Horizon. "Captain," Lieutenant Reeves called out, her voice urgent. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Daxamite homeworld." Captain Lorvan strode to the communications console, his brow furrowed. "Put it through, Lieutenant." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the regal visage of the Daxamite High Council representative. "Greetings, Captain Lorvan. We have an urgent request that cannot wait." Kyle moved closer, intrigued by the unexpected development. The Daxamite representative continued, "Our royal family, deeply impressed by humanity's role in forging this interstellar peace, wishes to join your expedition. We are dispatching a delegation led by 3 of our princesses, Calera, Zorel, and Listen." Lorvan's eyes widened slightly, but he maintained his composure. "This is unexpected, Your Excellency. We're honored, but we're mere moments from departure." "We understand the timing is less than ideal," the representative acknowledged. "However, these princesses possess unique abilities that could prove invaluable in reactivating the precursor facilities. Their transport will rendezvous with your fleet within the hour." As the transmission ended, the bridge erupted into a flurry of activity. Lorvan turned to his crew, his voice steady despite the sudden change of plans. "All right, people. We need to reconfigure the ship to accommodate our royal guests. Let's move." Kyle watched as crew members scrambled to prepare suitable quarters and adjust life support systems. The energy on the ship was electric, a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. An hour later, a sleek Daxamite vessel smoothly docked with the HSS Horizon. The airlock hissed open, revealing 3 striking figures. The Daxamite princesses stepped aboard, their regal bearing immediately commanding attention. Lorvan stepped forward to greet them, his face a mask of professional courtesy despite the last-minute nature of their arrival. "Welcome aboard the HSS Horizon, Your Highnesses. I am Captain Lorvan." Calera, the eldest of the 3, inclined her head slightly. "Captain, we appreciate your accommodation on such short notice. We're eager to contribute to this historic mission." As the princesses were escorted to their quarters, Kyle couldn't help but notice the barely concealed looks of awe from the human crew members. The Daxamite's otherworldly beauty and air of authority were undeniable. With the royal delegation safely aboard, the expedition fleet finally began its departure from Earth orbit. The ship's engines hummed to life, propelling them into the vast expanse of space. Days into their journey, the fleet encountered an unexpected obstacle. The void before them was filled with a massive field of debris, the remnants of some ancient celestial battle. Sensors indicate this debris field stretches for millions of kilometers, reported the science officer. It appears to be the aftermath of a conflict between precursor forces and an unknown enemy. Lorvan studied the tactical display, his expression grim. Navigate with extreme caution. We can't afford any damage to our ships this far from home. As the fleet carefully maneuvered through the treacherous field, Kyle felt a sudden unease. His connection to the precursor network was buzzing with an unfamiliar energy. Before he could voice his concerns, alarms blared across the ship. "Captain!" shouted the tactical officer. "Multiple unidentified vessels decloaking around us." The view screen lit up with the sight of a motley assortment of ships, a patchwork of various alien technologies cobbled together. Their weapons powered up, targeting the expedition fleet. "It's an ambush," Lorvan growled. "Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat." The space around them erupted into chaos as the pirate vessels launched their assault. Energy beams and projectiles crisscrossed the void, impacting against the shields of the expedition ships. Kyle rushed to the station, his mind racing. These weren't just any pirates. They were human, descendants of a lost colony that had fled Earth centuries ago, now returned as marauders. The HSS Horizon shuddered under the impact of multiple hits. "They're concentrating their fire on us," Lorvan observed. "They must believe we carry valuable precursor artifacts." As the battle raged, a group of pirate boarders managed to breach the Horizon's hull. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, but not before the intruders had gained access to several decks. In the chaos, Kyle received an urgent alert through his neural link to the ship systems. The 3 Daxamite princesses were trapped in a damaged section, cut off from the rest of the crew. Worse, the ship's automated defenses had activated, unable to distinguish between the princesses and the invading pirates. Kyle knew he was the only one who could reach them in time. Without hesitation, he sprinted towards the nearest airlock, calling out to Lorvan as he ran. "Captain, the princesses are in danger. I'm going after them." Lorvan's voice crackled over the comm. "Understood, Kyle. Be careful out there." Kyle quickly donned an experimental spacesuit, its surface shimmering with integrated Void Harbinger technology. As the airlock cycled open, he took a deep breath and launched himself into the void. The battle raged around him as Kyle carefully made his way across the hull of the HSS Horizon. Debris and weapons fire streaked past, forcing him to duck and weave as he navigated towards the damaged section. Inside the trapped compartment, the Daxamite princesses watched in awe as Kyle's suited figure appeared outside the viewport. They had initially dismissed the human as physically inferior, but now they witnessed his extraordinary courage and persistence firsthand. Kyle reached the damaged section and interfaced with the ship's systems, his precursor-enhanced abilities allowing him to override the lethal defense protocols. The princess's eyes widened as the human before them seemed to communicate directly with the ship itself. "Your Highnesses," Kyle's voice came through their comms. "We need to move quickly. Follow my lead, and we'll get you to safety." What followed was a series of zero-gravity maneuvers that would have been impossible for ordinary humans. Kyle guided the princesses through the damaged corridors, using his suit's enhanced capabilities to clear obstacles and protect them from the ongoing battle. As they neared safety, Kyle's actions had not gone unnoticed by the Daxamite royals. Inspired by his bravery, they decided it was time to join the fight. Calera, her eyes glowing with power, turned to Kyle. "We will no longer stand idle." It's time we showed these pirates the true strength of Daxamite royalty. Kyle nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. I was hoping you'd say that. Let's turn the tables on these attackers. With new hope, the group fought their way back to the bridge. The Daxamite princesses unleashed their unique abilities, catching the pirates off guard. Calera's super strength sent invaders flying, while Zor-El's telepathic powers sowed confusion among the enemy ranks. Listen manipulated energy fields, bolstering the ship's faltering defenses. Working in concert with Kyle's knowledge of the ship systems, they began to push back against the pirate assault. The tide of battle was turning, but the fight was nowhere near the end.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.